Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? This is the exciting first moments of the show where we figure out what I've broken. Let me know if you can hear me. Can hear you. Not too loud, not too ugly. Looking okay? Second question, why aren't all you heathens in church? It's Sunday. Awesome. Glad it sounds good. How is everyone? And thank you for coming by to another Horror Geek live stream where I will show up and take your questions and babble endlessly for probably an hour, maybe two. Who knows? We're like free to do whatever we want today. It's Sunday. We're not in church. We're hanging out here talking about horror movies. How exciting is that? All right. Yeah, everybody can hear me. Good. You preaching us. So we're going to have this problem with the chat that I always have where it doesn't want to move where I want it to go. So let me see if I can just pop it out a little bit. All right. So Joffrey, hello. How are you? Good to see you. How is everyone this fine Sunday morning as I try to get my chat to the right place here? Let's see. Oh, move. I did not get Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4K. It's on my list. Like, I need to get that. I need to get Martin still. There's a lot of that new stuff. I'd like to pick up that Phenomena. I think it's 4K UHD. Looks pretty sweet. I'd like to pick that up and add it to the collection. So, hey, Rob, I did this for you and Chuck just because I wanted my Europeans to be able to actually come to a live stream and not have to stay up till like 4 o'clock in the morning for it. So, church was at 8 a.m. Who goes to church? That's right. At noon, you're headed over to the Golden Corral for the post-church buffet, the feast. Is watching the movie The Church the same as attending church? I believe so, yes. I think any Italian horror film, the Italians, the Vatican's over there somewhere in Italy, so I think that counts. I think that definitely counts. Oh, 1 a.m. in Korea. I'm sorry, William. I don't know that I'll ever be able to do like a good stream time for Korea. Do you prefer the James Cameron vision for Alien franchise or the Ridley Scott version? Well, that's a tough one. I like both, and they're very different. So it's hard to really pick which one I like better. I think I like Ridley's version a little more because it's more of a straight horror movie, so that like appeals to me being a horror guy. But the Aliens is great. It's a great action horror movie. So, but I think if I'm watching one more often, it's Alien for sure. Which is funny because like I have long been on the record as being like, I am not the world's biggest Ridley Scott fan, but that's probably the Ridley Scott movie I like most. Alien versus over Aliens, and it ain't even close. Yeah, I think it's really hard to compare them because they're such apples and oranges films. Like they're totally different aside from sharing a name and some of the characters, but like tonally they're so different. It's really hard to pick, and there's no right answer because like if you're a guy who doesn't like haunted house movies in space, then the first movie is probably not for you. But if you don't like action movies, and you prefer horror movies, then the second movie is probably less appealing for you. So yeah, that's my Cameron's the line more with the AVP timeline. Definitely, you can definitely see that. So ranking the War of the Worlds films, oh God, heck no, that's too early for that, man. Too early for that. Shocker is underrated. That's funny. Yeah. The birth of the football practice line actually comes from Shocker. I've thought about doing that one a bunch of times lately. So, hey, Team Hackett. Hey, from Florida. It's nice to know I have fans in Scotland. I like that. I like action. Not a big fan of kids who can't act, though. Shots fired, Rob. Hey Mike, who's your favorite practical effects wizard? I'm gonna be a basic horror dude and just say Savini. I mean, it's really hard to pick. Like, you got Baker and Bottin, and then you get into like Gennaro De Rossi and the Italians, Gino De Rossi, Stivoletti, all those guys. But like, I think like the default answer is Savini. So I'm just gonna be basic. The big one, yeah, I did like The Sadness. I liked it a lot, and as I was watching it when it came out, like last year, I was like, oh God, this movie's really great. I'd love to do it on the show, and it's like, but there's no way I can do it on the show because there's like something every like 2 minutes that I would get like demonetized for, or banned for, or whatever. Which brings me to a point. I actually am in trouble with YouTube again somehow, so we'll talk about that in a bit if anybody's interested. So it's exciting times for me with the old PrudeTube again, as always. So it's been a rough week with the powers that be. So yeah, who's my that Savini gets my vote. Yeah. Mitch Pileggi is great. That dude's great in everything. Like I think like it's funny to kind of go back now after you're kind of used to him being in the X-Files as Skinner. So I always see him as Skinner first, and then you see all the stuff he's been in over the years that wasn't that role, and he plays a great villain. Like he's a good villain. It's kind of funny that they made him Skinner because that seems so like sort of against type for him when you look at the rest of his career. Like he's a scumbag on Sons of Anarchy. You know, he was good in Supernatural. He's good in Shocker as a villain. Like he's a good heavy, I think. So am I doing reviews on commission? Samantha, yes and no. No, really, because I've thought about doing that. The kind of the challenge with that is like I don't I kind of just like to do what I'm gonna do. And sometimes like if you do something on a commission and like I have to go through and make sure it's something that I can get away with actually doing on YouTube, how much of a copyright headache is it gonna be? Can I make it funny? Like I know like a bunch of people are gonna be like, hey, can you do Return of the Living Dead? I'll pay a commission to do it. And it's like, yeah, I could, but I can't because like I just every time I try to do that script, I can't make it funny. So yeah, if somebody wanted to commission a video of this very specific movie, I know like Michael Minikin and I were talking today because he has wanted me to do Turkey Shoot for forever, and I keep saying like I'm gonna do it, and I never get to it. But it is on the list. It's something I'm open to discussing with people if they had something they really, really wanted me to do. But, again, it has to be like there's a process to it where I kind of have to go through and make sure it's a good fit for me to do it. And it's not going to give me a bunch of YouTube headaches. So, Tom Savini, the legend. Yeah, Tom is a legend. So, oh, you're gonna go for Olaf. Yeah. So it's funny. I really like Olaf. I think Olaf's effects work is a lot better than his directing and his writing. So, definitely that. And for sheer amount of gore with absolutely like no money, it's hard to top Olaf Ittenbach. Like that guy gets maximum carnage out of every penny he has. So I can definitely go along with that choice. Hi Tanya, how you doing? Oh, we just jumped way down here. I don't know why we did that. Scrolling back. Hi, Frantic. Sorry, so it looked like Frank for a second because I'm blind, because I'm old. Greetings from the UK. Greetings from Florida. And hello from Germany. Hello from Florida. We're all old here, I think. Chuck, have a good dinner, man. Have a good dinner. With Cynthia Rothrock would have been a fantastic final girl. Like, man, think about that. Like, she'd have been incredible. Because she's tough and she kind of fits the final girl mold. She's usually a good guy in movies. So, like, yeah, I feel like we might have been robbed that we never got like a Cynthia Rothrock versus Jason final showdown. So. Do I like riffs of horror movies? I like riffs of all kinds of movies. We wouldn't do this show if I didn't like them. So, yeah, it's no secret that, I grew up watching Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that's like a lot of why Sick Flicks exists, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be a serious film critic anymore. I just want to make a bunch of dad jokes about movies. And here we are. So yeah, I like them. I like watching other people's riffs more than writing them at this point, though. The show hit its 4-year anniversary last week, and it's both amazing that I have done this for 4 years, because it seems like I have not done it for 4 years, and yet it seems like I have done it my entire life at this point. So. Sometimes the Sick Flicks, sometimes after 4 years, the riff scripts are like, oh my God, do I have to write another one of these? How am I going to find another pun for axe that I haven't used like 50 times already? So, a lot of pressure there. Oh, there are a ton of books I wish were made into horror movies. All the time I talk about Dan Simmons's Lord of Kali is one that I thought would have made like a really cool, like sort of psychological, moody horror movie type thing that has never been made into one. And the other one that I've always talked about, like Darabont had the rights to King's Bachman book, The Long Walk, has had that. I'd like to see that at some point, although I don't think it will ever live up to the book in the sense that it's probably a hard story to adapt, because especially the ending. So I kind of feel like you probably screw that up, but I'd still like to see it. So Sadness is the best horror movie of the last year. Yeah, it is. It probably is. It was gory. It was interesting. It was not overly long. It looked like a really well shot movie. Yeah, I definitely liked it. Although I will say I've spent the past week like trying to catch up on all the new stuff you guys always ask me if I've seen. I didn't make a ton of progress on that front because I still had to work. But I did see finally Barbarian, which I was very sort of meh on. So I feel like I'm missing all the comments here. Yeah, so Barbarian. So I went into Barbarian cold, as everyone advised me to do, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to know too much about it going into it. I just was like, everybody's like, "Oh, there's something's gonna happen here, and you're gonna be really like shocked." And when that something happened, I was sort of shocked. I was sort of shocked that anybody thought that this was all that exciting that this thing happened. But I didn't dislike Barbarian. I really just felt like meh, like just sort of indifferent to it. It's there, it's a fine film, but the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, this is Martyrs meets Don't Breathe meets like Castle Freak, type thing. And so I'm like, why do I need this movie if I can watch any one of those movies? And with the exception of maybe Castle Freak, I think like they're probably better movies than Barbarian was. So didn't hate it. I know I always make it sound like I hated everything that I didn't love. Didn't hate it. I was just like, I don't really care for Justin Long too. And I didn't even know Justin Long was in it. That's how blind I went into it, because everybody's like, don't know anything before you go in. So I've been avoiding it for months. And so I went in really blind, and it's sort of like Frontiers, kind of thing. And I came away from it like, yeah, that was a thing, and I've seen it now, and I will probably never see it again. So, so that was the first one I watched. Let's see if I'm missing any chats down here. Tanya, you just got Cannibal Holocaust from eBay. Congrats. Enjoy. I don't know if that's the right word for it or not. Yeah, Samantha, patron tier. Yeah, I thought about that. I don't know. Like, it's something we got to think. I have to think about it. It's so hard to program for the channel as it is with sponsors and all of that I would like to make it where people could pick movies, but then I also see all the places that could go horribly wrong. So yeah, I like lots of cheap British nasty horror stuff like Inseminoid, which I just said the other day to someone. I'm like, I can't believe we haven't done Inseminoid on the channel yet, especially after I did Extra. So yeah, I like all that stuff. So glad you weren't eaten by that gator in your backyard. Yeah, so that was the big excitement here at Casa de Bracken this week. I can't even say my own name. But yeah, like the other day I went out, and you have to be careful in my backyard because I get a lot of alligators back there, and it's alligator mating season. And we headed back there, and my neighbor's with me, and he's like, hey, that's a gator over there. And I'm like, what? And I look over, and right in my backyard is this like 9-foot alligator laying in the backyard, sunning himself, just enjoying life. So super exciting there. But he did not eat me. He did not eat Odin. We're fine. He comes through about once a year at this time of the year when it's mating season, looking for ladies, I think. So, but he was not interested in me. It must not be his type. Simon, when is your new show starting? Glad you asked. Thank you for asking. Deep Cuts is sort of. Let me just run you through the Deep Cuts situation. Deep Cuts is the second show, which is more of a video essay type show about horror movies, where I talk about a specific thing or a specific film or a specific filmmaker's body of work or something like that. And it's less jokey, but it's more of the like the did you know stuff presented by me. So I think it's still pretty interesting. Like if you're interested in those movies beyond just hearing me make dad jokes about them. We have filmed 4 episodes. 4 episodes are done. They're edited. They are ready to go. The issue is I kind of wanted to have like at least 5 before we launched it because of, the various copyright issues and demonetization stuff. So it's always good to have extra stuff in the queue in case there are problems. The challenge we have run into with Deep Cuts right now is that they are a lot more editing than Sick Flicks is, because Sick Flicks is basically like, here's a joke, here's me at the podium, here's the scene from the movie, here's the joke, here's the podium, here's the movie. It has a very simple rhythm, and all the stuff is coming from one source. With deep cuts, they have to look a little like they're edited a little nicer, a lot nicer actually, but and there's a lot more sources of B-roll in them, and so it takes longer to find that B-roll and do those effects and put them together. And Jay, who does all my editing, who's fantastic, is like also doing Sick Flicks and working on deep cuts, and it's a lot for him. So we may have to get another editor. He's, you know, it might be too much for him to juggle. He may not, you know, so we're kind of in limbo right now with the next episode. Just kind of wait until he figures out his workflow and if we can make that work, or if I have to get someone to help him with it, or whatever. But there are absolutely 4 episodes of deep cuts are done. They're sitting on my channel in the back end, ready to go as soon as they have thumbnails and titles. But otherwise, they're ready to go. B Movie Babylon, the video podcast, is moving along very nicely. I expect that will be, I'm really hoping we'll have the first episode of that next month. I'm currently getting art from designers for the, you know, the cover podcast, cover image thing and all that. So theoretically, once that's done, it's just a matter of like recording some of those, and that will be much simpler because it's just going to be this. So you're going to basically get a lot of me just sitting here talking with some little bit of B-roll, but very much just a podcast, and the video is just a bonus. Like, it's really designed to be an audio show, but we're doing it over here too. So yeah, so those are both coming, working hard on them. Like I said, Deep Cuts has 4 episodes done. I think each one is better than the previous one. Like, I was starting to like figure out the rhythm and all that. Like, I still don't know how to do them without like being the horror geek in them. You know, like I have to rein in my over the topness, but yeah, we're like, we're doing that, and that's been pretty good so far, shaping up to be a good show, I think, and I'm excited to share it with you. We just have to figure out how to make them faster or not kill Jay making them. So that's where we're at with that. But I would expect that both, you know, sooner than later, especially B Movie Babylon. So yeah, Dead Alive Turtle Wars is one that I don't know that we'll ever do it. Because it's got like multiple strikes against it. First off, it's been it's a Lionsgate film in America, so there's going to be that copyright issue as always, which means, you know, if I do it, then we're going to have to appeal. It's going to take like 2 months of appeals and counterclaims and legal threats and all of that junk to kind of get it to get it out to you. And then second, it's a movie that's like really well known, which never does well on this channel. Anytime I do something that like is popular or relatively mainstream or not way off the beaten path, it tanks. And then the third thing is it's a gore comedy, and like it's really hard to do the horror comedies scripting wise for Sick Flicks. Like, they're already funny, they're already absurd, and like making jokes about them being funny and absurd is like, I don't know, it seems redundant. So I always have a hard time with those. But it's not a never, but it's not real high on my list. It hasn't been for a long time because, and then there's the whole thing that what am I going to show from it, because they literally demonetize me over everything. So I don't even know what I could show from Dead Alive at this point without like getting in trouble. So Rob, YouTube's been weirder than normal the past few months. All of my vids die after 2 days. Yeah, so that's a good. I have seen that with my own channel. You know, YouTube is basically like, they tell you like, oh, if you hit this CTR and you hit this average view duration and you keep this percent, you know, if you got more than 70 people watching past 30 seconds and blah, 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 you're a good candidate to get your video promoted to a wider audience type deal. And sometimes that happens. And like, you know, so we'll have times where I come out on a Wednesday and it gets like a 14% click-through rate, and it's like more of your regular viewers are watching this video and they're watching it for longer. So, and then by Saturday, it sometimes gets a push. And for a while, that was happening pretty consistently. You could go like, okay, if I hit these numbers in day one, you know, by Saturday, I'm going to get a good push. And then it where it goes from there is just dependent on how it does each day. But the past few months, we have had videos that had good numbers on day one and good click-through rates and good view durations, and they have just been like murdered by Saturday. Like YouTube's just like, yeah, we're done. We're not showing this anymore. So yeah, I'm not sure why that is or what's going on with that, but I have experienced that recently, which was super exciting because sometimes when you do a sponsor deal now, they are like, well, we want you to guarantee that you're going to get X amount of views in a month or a week or whatever, and you have no way of knowing. And so like then they're upset if you don't get that number of views, and then they don't want to work with you again, and they think you're like a terrible YouTuber, and you're like, no, I'm not. I can't control what the algorithm does with my videos. but yeah. So yeah, they have been, there's been stuff lately, just, like typical algorithm shit where, they tweak something somewhere, it's constantly tweaking. And lately it does not want to promote anything after 2 days. Although we did okay. We did pretty well with Jack Brooks, which surprised me. Jack Brooks did pretty well. And this week's video is doing pretty decently. So I did not check out the Retaliators, Dr. C. It's still one I got to check out. So what else we got here? Black Hill, welcome to your first live stream. They're usually on when I'm asleep. I know. That's what I tried today. I'm like, let's do it on a Sunday. I don't know how this will do. I don't know if anybody's around, but let's do it and hang out. So, hey, glad you made it to your first one. I hope this is at least moderately entertaining. Hopefully. If Fergasso, Drudy, and Matei are the unholy trinity, or Combs, Crampton, and Stuart Gordon the holy trinity, well, they're definitely up there. I don't know who my holy trinity is, but they're definitely up there. So, Rob, yeah, I don't like, A movies are never going to be my bread and butter, which is both good because, I found an audience of people who like the same crap I do. And also sometimes a detriment because it's really hard to lure in, like, this channel skews very old in terms of viewership. Shocker, right? Because I'm always talking about how old I am and stuff that nobody under 40 remembers. But we really, like that. Everything's like 35 to 65 on this channel. Like we do not get a lot of under 18 viewers, or even 18 to 24 or any of that, which is a pretty desirable demographic that we totally miss. And so, yeah, if I did some of these more newer movies, we'd get more of them, but I just don't have that much interest in doing any of them. And I'm always, even the mainstream horror stuff, a lot of times I'm like, well, does the world really need another like video about Halloween or Friday the 13th? Like, yeah, I have lots of things to say about them, and some of them are things that not everybody else says, but also, like, do we really need that? Or is my time better spent talking about some weird movie nobody's ever heard of that maybe now you'll find it and like it because I talked about it? So that's been my that's been my MO for the programming for a long time. Brad James, Jaws and Halloween are the ones that really brought me into the fold as a kid. Those were the ones. Yeah, I saw them young and they had left an indelible imprint upon my impressionable young brain. And yeah, those were the two. Those were the ones, man. I saw those and like they scared me and I was terrified of them, and I was fascinated by why I was scared of these things because I was old enough to know that, like, this is just a movie. It's not really real, but why does it scare me? And, so yeah. Amy, how you doing? I love old horror movies too. So definitely my bag. If you couldn't have guessed from watching the show. Oh my gosh, I gotta scroll way up here. I've been blabbing so long, I missed so many chats. Hey, David, let's get physical media. How you doing, man? Chris Andrews, thank you for giving me a like. Hope you have a good day at work, and I'll see you in the next video, man. Thanks for stopping by. And same to you, NG Monochrome, whose name I always see and can never pronounce. No worries, man, and have a good day at work. When was Nick Cage the best? I haven't seen Willy's Wonderland. So, see, this is it. Yeah, going back to that, like I was talking about the stuff I'd seen that was kind of new. So after the Barbarian experience, I decided to check out Deadstream, which if you have not seen Deadstream, it's over on Shudder. It's a sort of indie film about a YouTuber who's been sort of disgraced, and he does like sort of Mr. Beast-esque kind of stunt videos. And his thing is that he's going to go stay in this haunted house overnight, and he accidentally knocks off the seal that has held all of the spirits at bay in this haunted house. And he's basically live streaming this horrible haunting that he's trying to survive. I was like, I'll be honest, like that was one I was like convinced I was not gonna like. I thought like, oh, this is gonna be too gimmicky for me. And then in the first like 20 minutes or so, I'm like, oh, it's kind of funny, but it's also definitely kind of gimmicky. But then it gets like surprisingly gory, and I actually ended up really liking it. Like the guy who directed it and co-wrote it and made it with his wife is also the star, and he's pretty entertaining. I thought he was a pretty good actor, and he carries the film along, and it's really kind of like a Zoomer Evil Dead in some ways. Like I would not say it's Evil Dead in the sense that it's destined to become like a classic major franchise thing like Evil Dead has become, but like it definitely has that vibe. Like it's like if Evil Dead had existed in the streaming era, you'd probably get something like Deadstream. So I definitely enjoyed that one. If you have Shudder, you can check it out. I'd recommend giving that one a watch. Legend of Leviathan. Yeah, visually aided podcasts are definitely the future. I mean, especially now with YouTube making such a big push into the podcast space. My thought was like, well, why am I calling it a podcast if it's just a video, right? I'm on YouTube. I'm on a video platform. But I'm really kind of curious to see how people, view it, because like there'll be a version, it will be built predominantly to be something you can listen to. Like you don't have to see it, but I'm sure there will be some images in B Movie Babylon that if you're watching on YouTube, other than just looking at my big melon head for 30 minutes or whatever, that you will be able to see some things. And the thing for me is like, how do we make that happen where it's a good show on YouTube where you can see it, but yet it's not necessarily a detriment if you're listening on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever where you can't see it. But yeah, the video shows are absolutely, they're like the now. I mean, Rogan and all those guys, they do a video show. People want to see the guys talking. Like it's like how it used to be with radio. Like you always listen to these guys on talk show hosts, and you always wonder what they look like, and then you'd see them and you're like, God, he looks like that. I don't picture him looking like that at all. So now we have these shows where everybody wants to see how they make the bacon, basically. So would you ever review any horror comics or horror themed video games? Yeah. So games, absolutely. I just, the thing is I don't think they never fit on the channel when it's just sick flicks. Like those things, like I know Spooky does like the disturbing comics, which I think is great. And I am not like super into the comic world anymore. I have been at multiple times. Like I have a massive comic collection, and I've worked in comic stores and stuff like that. So at various points in my life, I have been a very avid comic collector and reader. But I'm not at this stage because it gets out of control for me. I have no self-control, and I'm just like, give me 2 of everything every month. And, then I've got boxes and boxes of comic books everywhere, and everybody gets pissed at me because I'm taking up half the house with comics. But games, absolutely. Like, like we've done a little bit of stream. I'd like to do some like game streaming where we talk about games over on Twitch. Like I've been kind of dicking around over there lately, trying to build that up a little bit. And I think like Deep Cuts lends itself absolutely to talking about things like Manhunt, because that has such a cinematic tie into it with the whole snuff film thing and all of that. So yeah, I think, I definitely think like some of that stuff will factor into Deep Cuts, and I don't know, like I do love gaming, and I do love horror video games, and so I've just not figured out how to make that work in the current show lineup as like a consistent thing. So it may be another channel, it may be another show. I don't know. I'm great at making shows that I don't, like conceptualizing shows I don't have time to make. Riffing on comedies is absolutely a nightmare, Node. You are 100% right. It is so hard. Like it's, like the ones that take themselves really seriously and that are terrible, those are easy. Those are the fun ones. But like, street trash started to happen, and I put it aside for a year before that video ever got made and came out, because I just got like 20 minutes in and I'm like, this movie's so absurd and so wildly politically incorrect and entertaining that like, what can I say that makes it funnier than I mean, you've got melting hobos. Like, what do I need to say that's going to be funnier than that, right? So I do them sometimes because it's a good challenge, and sometimes there are ones that I can go and find things to like add. Like, I think Street Trash ended up coming out pretty well once I got my head around like, okay, this is already absurd. You're not going to out absurd it. Just find the funny things that work with what it gives you. And but like, Return of the Living Dead, I have sat down with 3 times in the last 3 years with the idea of doing it because everybody's like, oh, you do Return of the Living Dead. And I'm like, oh, it'd be great for the channel. And it's a great movie. And, but it's just fun. It's like Tucker and Dale and all that. It's already so funny that like, what am I going to say that's funnier than what's happening? So they're very hard to do. And so I don't do a lot of them. I learn my lesson early, and about once a year, I have to give myself a reminder by trying to do one. Like Bad Taste was another one. Like that's so absurd, such an absurd movie. Like I don't know, it's really hard to find things to make it funnier than it already is. So The Dead Pit on Sick Flicks, that has been on the list. I don't know if it's coming this year, but it's absolutely on the list. Because I think it would be funny to do too. I have a lot of jokes for that one. Is the yellow light in the background? Yes. Oh, goodness. Your brother's watching Willy's Wonderland right now. I have not seen any of those new Cage movies. Like I saw Color Out of Space, I think was the last one I saw of his that was kind of getting, or Mandy. I think I saw Color Out of Space after Mandy. I like them. I just don't have time to keep up with them. So, oh, Mickey the Bull. So many. There have been so many I want to review, but haven't. A lot of times it comes down to how much of a headache it's going to be. YouTube is just like, I had this fight with them this week because they demonetized Nightmare Sisters, right? It had been up for a couple weeks, and then they come through and go, no, this isn't safe for advertisers. And so I'm like, but it is. And so I appeal, and it goes through the manual review process, and I get a letter back saying, hey, you're right. It is fine. Here's your monetization back. And then we just, it's done, right? It's resolved. And then I didn't change anything. I didn't change the video. I didn't change the title. I didn't change the thumbnail. We didn't do anything. And then 4 days later, they're like, oh, wait, on second thought, no, it doesn't. It doesn't meet the monetization requirements now. It's not safe anymore. So I have to go back and forth with them, send them copies of the letter saying, well, then why did you send me a letter saying a human reviewed this and it's fine? Like you're either telling me that you guys don't communicate with each other and know what you're doing, which I totally believe, or that your rules are so vague and obtuse that even 2 humans who work for you, who do this for a living, can't agree on what's okay and what's not, which is also a big problem. Or you guys just have it in for me. So I don't know which it is, but we did get the video back. But yeah, so a lot of times decisions, unfortunately, are made on like, am I gonna have to fight a long copyright battle on this movie? Am I going to have to fight YouTube to get any footage in this movie? And then there's always like, well, will this resonate with my audience? So yeah, there's a lot of movies. There's a lot of really gory stuff that I wanted to do that we'll never be able to do now because of the way YouTube is. Like, I can't fathom a way that I could ever do a Serbian film, for example, or even I couldn't do August Underground, and I really wanted to do those. I really wanted to do more of the Marian Dora stuff, Angel's Melancholy, Voyage to Wherever, and Carcinoma and all that stuff, and there's just no way. Like if they're giving me crap about Nightmare Sisters, like dude. But I will say, I think YouTube has a way bigger problem with sexy stuff than they do violent stuff. Is my sort of takeaway recently. Like the violence, they'll let you slide a lot. There's a lot of leeway on that. On the sexy stuff, they have gotten very puritanical. So. But yeah, there's so many things that I have not been able to do, and I don't think we'll ever be able to do. So, Turtle Wars, sure thing. I'm glad I could help with that. Thank you. Lots more on the way, man. Lots more coming. Nicolas Cage is amazing at me. Nicolas Cage is kind of amazing in anything, and it's just it's just really a definition of what, it depends on what your definition of amazing is. Like sometimes he can be amazingly good in things, and sometimes he's so amazingly over the top that it's amazing anyway. Dan, my epic beard is getting longer. It's really due for a trim. It's funny. I came in here today and I'm like, oh shit, I need to shave my head. I haven't shaved my head in a few weeks, and my beard is like out of control on the sides because I haven't filmed anything in like a week and a half because I've been writing, and so I've not kept the hair and the beard under control. I was like, I look like a hot mess. Yeah, the YouTube just like they make it hard for horror movie related content. They make it hard for true crime related content. That they have made it clear that they're happy to take the money you bring them on that stuff, but they are not fans of that type of content, which is really funny to me because, as I have pointed out, I went down the YouTube baby feeding rabbit hole last week after someone said you should go see what they do let on this site, and I was absolutely astonished that what I can't show, that what other people get away with under the guise of education. So but yeah, they absolutely, they have no love for the horror channels or the true crime channels or the dark stuff channels, which is so weird. I don't know why they have such an issue with it, but Children of the Corn remake, haven't seen it. My guess is skip it, just given the lineage of the Children of the Corn franchise. So yeah, that's a hard skip, David says. That would be my guess too. Other new stuff. So keeping on that trend of new stuff I have seen. So after Barbarian, which I was meh on, and then Deadstream, which I was a big thumbs up on, I finally got around to seeing Ty West's X. After everyone has talked about it, I was like, oh, I should finally see this movie. I like Ty West a lot. I like House of the Devil. I liked the Innkeepers. I even liked the sequel, the Cabin Fever sequel that he wanted his name off of because he hates it. I thought it was okay. So I was excited to check out X, which I have taken to calling Rob Zombie's. Oh my God. I totally lost my train of thought. I turned to call it something. Oh my God, what's so dumb. Rob Zombie's Boogie Nights. That is exactly what X struck me as, Rob Zombie's Boogie Nights. And since I like Rob Zombie and I like Boogie Nights, I was totally cool with X. I thought X was interesting. I don't think it does anything particularly new. But I think it executes everything it does well. I was really excited by Chekhov's alligator because I'm like, oh, there's an alligator and he doesn't do anything. He better turn up later. And sure enough, he does. So I felt like my needs were met. The alligator showed back up, and so now I'm kind of curious to see Pearl, because I had a lot of people tell me like, oh, I liked X a lot, but I liked Pearl more. So, but yeah, it's like it definitely has that sort of Rob Zombie vibe to it, and it's in a way which is not something I always think of Ty West as being, but it's really pretty well done. It was pretty gory. I thought, yeah, all in all, I was pretty thumbs up on that one too. So this idea that I hate everything new is quickly being disproven. For now. We're not through the list yet. Best wishes from Ireland. Any chance of getting a video on Night of the Demons 2? Well, greetings from Florida. Thank you. I'd like to come home to Ireland someday. See the rest of the Brackens over there. Night of the Demons 2 has been sitting on my stack of stuff for 2 years. And I will say that I was really gung-ho to do it. And then I got a little bit scared because I think that they released it through, I think, Scream Factory, but someone big actually owns the rights to it, who always gives me crap. And I was like, oh, I'm probably gonna get a bunch of crap about this. So I didn't do it, but it's still in the stack, so it's still in the running to happen. I suspect I will just bite the bullet and do it at some point, because I like it. All right, what else we got here? I come for the Italian horror reviews. Well, I'm glad, Dante. I appreciate that, because I like doing the Italian horror reviews, and sometimes they do well and sometimes they don't, but I keep doing them because I like them. So, well, thank you, Steven. Any time you guys want to promote the channel, it helps me out. I appreciate it. Like if you share stuff or, talk about it or share with friends or whatever, that all helps, as does, picking up merch in the merch store, or, being at the premieres, or, if you buy stuff on Amazon through the affiliate links, all that helps the channel, and I appreciate it. Like, you guys are, I said to someone the other day, like, someone was talking about me being here for 4 years and how, like, so much of the time YouTube just pisses me off, and like, they're like, man, you're here 4 years and all they do is make you angry. And I'm like, yeah, I just do it for the people who are subscribed to me at this point, because if they weren't here, I'd just quit. But you guys are here, and you guys are why I do it, and you guys make it worthwhile for me. So thank you for that. And any way you ever want to promote the show, I'm always grateful for. Let's see. Cocaine Bear was an A-tier B film. If you haven't seen it, totally enjoyable. Yes, I have not seen it. The kids went to see it, and I did not go, because I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I really want to go see a movie called Cocaine Bear, because this just sounds like something so ludicrous that it's going to be dumb, right? It's going to be like one of those shark movies. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go see that. But now I've heard from multiple people that it's actually pretty gory and it was fun. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going to have to see it. I'll probably just wait for it to come out on DVD, though, or Blu-ray. So rewatch Possession with Sam. Yeah, Possession's good. It's very bizarre, though. Very bizarre. Sad news about Sam Neill, too, the cancer. Hoping he's going to beat it. But it's weird to think of, like, how much of my life, Sam Neill has been in, like from Jurassic Park and In the Mouth of Madness and The Omen, and, like, this guy's been around forever. It's weird to think, like, him not making movies anymore. All right, what do we got here? Oh, yeah, Turtle Wars is 50. Yeah, I'm 52. I get all your Christ, I'm old jokes. What message do you have for your fans here in the hood? Stay strapped. Yeah, that's as good as I got. Big one. If you're out there in the real hood, stay strapped. I'm probably getting demonetized for that one. Oh, Holy Trinity, Romero, Carpenter, and Craven. Yeah, you got a lot of different ways with Holy Trinity. I don't know who my Holy Trinity would be, because, like, I tend to skew so heavily Italian. It's hard to think about having like a Trinity without, like, Argento or, guys like that. So, hey, Dr. C, you're one of the younger guys. Well, thanks for being here. I'm always happy to have some younger viewers. I'm always like, oh, am I gonna get in trouble if they're too young, because the show's a little bit gory. But I'm glad we've got some under 20s around, so I don't feel so ancient. Mickey 62, you got me beat by a mile. Whew, you're old. The kids would not appreciate my Jim Ross. That's very true. I do like, though, my one of my favorite things is every week when we go to the live stream, and we're like going through it during the premiere, rather, and we get to, like, the Christ I'm old joke, and Amy, who is young, and JoJo, who comes to the premiere, she's also young, and they often don't know the joke, so that always makes me sort of happy. Like, oh, see, someone doesn't remember it. All right, Die Turn. How you doing? Hey, Mike. Both trailers for Evil Dead and Renfield look good. I found everything by Ty West to be derivative, especially the Innkeepers. Yeah, I will not say to you that Ty West has ever reinvented the wheel on anything. In fact, especially what's the one, The Sacrifice, the Jonestown one, which I did not. That's the one I like least of his films, I would say, because it just doesn't feel like it does anything new. Like, if you have seen a Jonestown documentary, or are familiar at all with Jonestown, like the Sacrifice, I think is the title, is very derivative. Like, it's just a fictionalized retelling of that story, and it doesn't really do anything different. And I wondered if it's because, like, I've been interested in Jonestown, like, morbidly my whole life, or if, and I just know so much about it that, like, seeing the movie version of it was not particularly interesting when you think about the real stories and the documentaries of what happened. So, yeah, definitely. I think House of the Devil is, obviously, it's a derivative film, but I think he does things with them that are interesting. Like, House of the Devil is such a slow burn, which I kind of love about it. It just, like, it has this just unsettling atmosphere for so long before it finally pays off. And I admire his sort of restraint in today's age to actually take his time to set things up and do all that before he gets to the big payoff. Most guys would just jump right to it. But Yeah. I have not seen the trailer for Evil Dead or Renfield. I'm avoiding the Evil Dead trailer because I would just like to see the movie without any preconceived notions going into it. So I've held off on that. I've heard a lot of people talking about Renfield, but I just haven't seen it. Lee Potts, hey, could you give me a shout, please? I've been a long time subscriber. Much love from the UK. Well, here's a shout to you, Lee. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for stopping by the live stream. And thanks for watching my videos. Greetings from Florida. How was that? Yeah, 50 and live through the 80s horror boom. I know. I'm glad. That's the only time I'm glad I'm 50 is it like means I got to live through the 80s. I follow a lot of channels that review the same thing. I eat up every second of every one of them. So yeah, see, that may be nice, fan. That has not been my experience. Like I don't know, because we don't do it often enough to really have a data set that conclusively proves whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or not. So I should not act like I do. But I just know for me, like, when you come on and it's like the holidays and everybody does the same 6 movies, I'm like, man, I don't want to watch like everybody cover Black Christmas this week, So I have kind of just stayed away from that. And I will say last year when we did Don't Open Till Christmas at Christmas and Blood Rage at Thanksgiving, neither one of those videos did well. So, and again, that could be lack of interest in those movies. It could be lack of interest in me talking about those movies, or it could just be that like everybody's like, oh, everybody's going to cover Don't Open Till Christmas this year because it just came out on Blu-ray, and Blood Rage is a perennial, like, everybody talks about it thing, and I think there are a lot of people who go, oh, I come to Mike because he covers shit I never knew about or stuff I've forgotten about, and like every time we try to do something a little more mainstream, I usually pay for it in terms of like lower views. So, which, again, is not like my whole reason for making videos. Like there are lots of times I will do a movie that I know is not going to like do big numbers, but it's just because I want to do it. And so that's it. But like some of those movies, like the holiday ones, like I just always feel like it's such a cliche to do them at the holiday. Like I'd much rather do like, My Bloody Valentine on the 4th of July or something like that, just to like make it weird and throw everybody off. So People Under the Stairs, I think it's perfectly rated, not JPEG. I think like it's not Craven's best film. I would have said that it was underrated in, like 10, 15 years ago, because it kind of, if you saw it in like 91 when it came out, then it just like it existed and it was there, but nobody really talked about it much for a long time. And now in the last few years, you're kind of seeing it find a new audience and get sort of a critical reevaluation. So I would say now it maybe it is edging towards a little bit overrated, because there's a lot of like, oh, this movie's so amazing, like how like it is when a new generation discovers something from 30 years ago that they really like, they like to hype it up, and I get that. I don't have a problem with that, but yeah, so I think it's perfectly rated right now. I think it's like sort of a cult movie by a director who was definitely a cult director that a lot of people loved, and it's not something that people like, like, oh, this is the best movie ever, but it's also not a forgotten film at this point. So I'm going perfectly rated. How's that for diplomatic? Mike, what's your favorite Giallo? That's tough. I mean, the default answer is usually like Deep Red, because it's such a great example of the form, and it was a big movie for Argento, and it was such an evolutionary film in Dario's career. And so yeah, I would go with that. But the ones that I like are always the sleazier ones. So so yeah, I enjoy, I will watch Giallo in Venice, or Strip Nude for Your Killer, or Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, or my other favorite is Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. Like I like all those Martino ones and stuff like that. But I think like, when it comes to like best, it's like, oh, Deep Red's up there, Tenebrae's up there, Blood and Black Lace, so there's a lot of options there. It's tough. I lost my spot again. Let me scroll back. Boy, I'm way behind. Yeah, the Sacrament is the one. I'm probably missing a bunch of stuff. Oh, Alexi, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Mike, just wanted to donate. How about some Miike films like Yakuza Apocalypse or Gozu? Gozu is probably coming to deep cuts. Yeah. That's one that I was like, so building off the comedies are hard to do. The other thing that's is often challenging to do for sick flicks are films with subtitles. Because, you know, like so much of the show is me saying, like, talking over footage of people talking without them, saying what they're actually saying. And with those, we have to do like multiple cuts because we have to get a rip of the film with subtitles and we have to get one without. And then I have to notate, like for Jay, like, oh, use subtitles in this scene because it's important for the joke, or don't use subtitles in this scene because it wrecks the joke. And so sometimes I have been like, oh man, let's not dive into a lengthy foreign subtitled film, which is why we haven't done like Dr. Lamb yet, or, you know, some of those other category 3 films I would like to do, just because it's hard to do them from a scripting editing standpoint. Whereas if we do them on something like Deep Cuts, where, you know, I just talk about them in a different way, it's a little bit easier. So plus a lot of times, like, you know, the reason we haven't done some of these films is that they're just long, and like the show skews long already because I can't not write a 8,000 word script for everything and make my life easy. And so when we get up into movies that are like 2 hours or 2 hours plus, even like Versus, like my scripts end up turning into things that would be like 40-minute episodes. And I'm like, nobody wants to listen to me for 40 minutes do this show. That's like 2 episodes. And, you know, like 2 normal episodes, 2 long normal episodes would be 40 minutes. And it's just a ton of work, as far as like, it takes twice as long to script, it takes twice as long to edit. And so we kind of had this thing where I try to keep the films, you know, under 2 hours. So, and some of those films are a little bit longer, which makes them challenging. Have you got a favorite Trauma and Full Moon film? My favorite Trauma film is Toxic Avenger. I mean, that was, you know, like and that's just because, like, I remember being like in 8th grade or something, and we rented Toxic Avenger, and your friends were just like, it was like the Faces of Death moment, you know, like a rite of passage, like, oh, we got this movie and it's so gory and crass and all this stuff. And so like it was, and then you see it and it's like, oh God, yeah, it really is. It's a fantastic, right? So, and I always will have a soft spot for Sergeant Kabuki, man, because it's just such a ridiculous concept. But and Full Moon, I've always been partial to Subspecies. Like you know, like as a kid, not a kid, I was in high school. But you know, when Subspecies came out, you're like, oh my God, they filmed a vampire film in Romania. Like that was unheard of at the time. And so like it had this, like all the Romanian countryside footage just gave that film like a vibe that so many other films of that era didn't have. And for that to be a Full Moon film where, you know, Charles Band was so cheap, was sort of amazing. Yeah. Yes, Tracy, that was my attitude. Like, I didn't hate it, but I did not enjoy The Sacrament. And I just felt like, yeah, I'm like, why am I watching this? Like, wouldn't we be better off? Like, the stories of the people who survived Jonestown are harrowing. And like, nothing in that movie ever approaches the level of like what you hear in the documentaries. And so I'm like, why does this film need to exist? It felt lazy. Like he wasn't trying. Like it seemed, I get why he wanted to do it. He had a connection to the story like all of us. And, but yeah, it probably wasn't a great idea for a feature film. I saw Summer of '84 like 3 years ago and I liked it, but I could not tell you one thing about it at this point, Johnny. Like it's one I know we watched and we liked it, and I never went back and saw it again, but I do remember that we liked it, which is part of getting old. Yeah, if you love 80s horror movies, you probably have to love Trauma stuff. I mean, they were important. That whole era. There was Full Moon, there was Trauma. You got a lot of good B movie stuff that you just don't get anymore. And sort of like an example of that, I did a script for Bad Dreams a while back that is not filmed yet or anything, and it was for a sponsor, and I don't know if the sponsor's going to happen, so I don't know if the video will ever happen or not. I'm sure it will, but at some point, but I don't know when. But so we did Bad Dreams, right? And you know what's wild about Bad Dreams is it was made in like 1989, and it was like a Fox production, and it was released theatrically, and it's just like it's a giant B movie, right? It's it's like a Elm Street ripoff with some cult stuff in it and all that, and it's good, but like they just don't make like today. You never see a movie like that get a studio release with a big advertising budget and in theaters, and like it's just crazy like that. But you'd see that kind of stuff in theaters like all the time back in the 80s. Like filmmakers were just more adventurous, and studios were more adventurous, and B movies were like, well, they're not going to make $100 million, but we'll make something off of them. And now all that stuff goes like straight to streaming, and it's, not even shot on film or any of that. So it's wild how things have changed in my lifetime. Taco Bella Lugosi. Hey, Mike, keep up the great work. Hell yeah. Well, thank you for the super chat. I love your name every time I see it. And I will do my best to keep up the great work. I try every week. It gets harder and harder, though. Oh, goodness. M. Night Shyamalan hasn't made a good film since his first. That is probably true. I find that hard to disagree with. I don't have the internet rage hate for M. Night that like a lot of the internet seems to have, but there are a lot of valid criticisms of his body of work. I'll just leave it at that. Can you say something that sounds dirty? It is a hell yeah. I can't, not off the top of my head. Split was the only decent. See, and I hated Split. It's so funny because everybody a couple years ago was like, "Oh, Split's Shyamalan's best film in ages," and blah blah blah. And so I'm like, "All right, we'll give it a whirl." And total miss for me. I was like so bored during that one. Yeah. Like Nukem meets street trash. That's a good description to sell anything to me. Signs was decent. Unbreakable and Split were good. Glass was mixed bag. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on a lot of M. Night's films. I thought Sixth Sense was okay, even though I guessed it like 15 minutes in. And Signs was, Lady in the Water. There are things that I will never go back and see again. But I don't quite have the hatred for them that like a lot of the internet seems to have. Jeremy Page, where does football practice come from? It comes from Mystery Science Theater 3000. So there's a bit in Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie, and I think there's also, they do it in Pod People, where a character wakes up and they yell football practice. And that ties back actually to Wes Craven's Shocker. That's where the joke comes from. So, but that is the history. That is the most asked question. Well, the most asked question is, what movie does Danny come from? Which is funny to me that people are still asking, which is good because that means new people are coming in and like discovering the channel. The day everybody knows that Danny is from Anthropophagus means the show is in trouble because that means we're not getting new viewers. But football practice is a close second, and that is 100% just a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing that I do because, any of us who do these kind of reviews, we owe them like not only gratitude, but probably royalties. So, because we have ripped them off hard. Joffy, best wishes from Florida. Amy, I wish I was around in the 80s. I was born in the wrong decade. Yep. So, yeah, it's funny because, everybody has a certain nostalgia for the decade they were born in. But, yeah, I often think, I lived through a chunk of the 70s, a good chunk, because I was born early. Didn't care for that too much. Didn't care for the 90s a whole lot. And haven't cared for anything since we've hit the 21st century. And the 80s were it. It was a good time. Even if you were a kid, it was a good time. Like, cause you were like, every kid I knew in the 80s was like me, was a latchkey kid. You came home, you were home by yourself cause your parents were at work. So you had a couple hours of like goofing around and you entertained yourself and you kind of just ran your own life because your parents were working a lot. And, yeah. Yeah, I have not seen Cabin in the Woods yet. I read the book though. Read the book a couple years ago. Liked it. Yeah. Going back to that's a good segue back into stuff I have seen recently. I know everyone is talking about Scream 6, which I have not seen, but I did finally see Scream 5. And that was definitely a movie. Definitely a movie. Not one I particularly enjoyed. So So yeah, so my previous statement that, see, I like some new horror movies is true, but I did not like Scream 5, not one bit. I actively hated every second of it because my issue with Scream 5 is like, why does this movie exist? Like, the beauty of Scream to me is that like it's not a supernatural killer. It's always like a giallo killer every movie, and there's always more than one of them, right? So you always have like a different whodunit, right? It's not like Halloween or Jason where you're like, oh, Ghostface is back and he's this supernatural entity like Art the Clown or some shit like that, right? But instead you get a new killer every time. So there's a little mystery, like trying to guess who the killer's going to be. But from like a willing suspension of disbelief standpoint, it's hard to go like, how are we like 6 movies into this and they are still finding new people who want to put on this mask and recreate these murders? So I have a little disconnect right there. And it's weird that you would have a disconnect there because you think like, well, you accept that Jason Voorhees can't be killed and Michael Myers can't be killed, but like that universe makes that abundantly clear up front, and that's part of the buy-in. Whereas Scream has always been like, well, it's grounded in reality, and so like, and the fact it can't be grounded in reality and then keeps stepping like into implausible land for me. But that issue aside, which I could absolutely live with if it's a good reveal. The problem with Scream 5 for me is that the new cast are all insufferable assholes. Like, it was nice to see the legacy characters. Like, it's great to see Nev. It's great to see Dewey. It's great to see Gale Weathers. I thought the only good scene in the movie was the scene with Dewey and Gale, like, reconnecting, and you could kind of see, like, what you'd missed that had happened between them. And, like, you've been with those characters for a while. You have, like, some affinity for them. They're not just characters at this point, right? By 5 movies in, but like all of the new characters are just fucking insufferable. Like the new Randy, like I'm just literally sitting there for 2 hours rooting for everyone to die. So that really and like, I did not go into this wanting to hate it. Like, if you ask me my ranking of Scream films, it's generally like 1, 4, 2, 3, because I really dislike 3. And I really have an intense dislike of 2, which I've talked about before, which I don't like the reveal at the end of 2. And I hate the Jerry O'Connell singing scene and all that, which is maybe not the fairest reason to rank it below 4, but that's me and that's my right. So, but yeah, 5, man, like all these kids, and it doesn't do anything. It's just basically a Scream remake, except that it doesn't capture any of the things that made Scream work, because Scream worked because it was this group of like fucking late Gen Xers, early millennials who'd grown up on this stuff and like loved it and lived it. And it was just ingrained in the fabric of their life. And like, this film has the problem that all these Zoomer kids are basically like, it's like all Zoomer things. They're above it somehow. Like, oh yeah, we know it, but we're better than it. And like, they were just like, they're probably very realistic characters. I just hated their guts. And the thought of spending another movie with any of them was like, yeah, hard pass. Thanks. I don't need to see Scream 6. So Scream 5, big thumbs down for me. Was not a fan. Don't understand why people were buzzed about it so much, but we'll never see that one again. So sorry if you loved Scream 5. I did not. Oh, goodness. Always confuse Street Trash with Body Melt. That is a fantastic double feature for sure. Right. Do a Christmas movie on Easter and a spring break one on Halloween. That has been my idea. I don't know. A lot of times, like even then, most of the holiday themed horror movies are only notable because they're centered around a holiday, right? Like they're not particularly good movies. You just mostly remember them because they're centered around a holiday, with the exception being like Halloween or Black Christmas. But you know, so and probably My Bloody Valentine. But yeah, like I don't know. Like they just always feel like gimmicky reviews to me, so I don't generally do them. And then I did them and regretted it. So I don't know if we'll do more. We might. Does anyone remember Mutant? Man, we've had so many Mutant conversations this week because of Forbidden World. There are like 75 movies named Mutant, so I can't keep them all straight anymore. That old slasher Christmas movie where the killer escaped from a mental institution and had a metal plate or a glass dome for a skull. How about the Killer Snowman? Oh yeah, the Killer Jack Frost. Yeah, Jack Frost is a good sick flick. I mean, from the sense that it's a terrible fucking movie and would be easy to make fun of. Not JPEG. Hey, have a good lunch. I'm probably way behind. You're probably way gone by the time I got to you. Yeah. Lived at the drive-in after I got my first ride. Yeah, so I'm not old enough to have actually driven to the drive-in, but once I saw Freddy's Dead at the drive-in actually in 3D. That was the last movie at the drive-in I think I've ever seen at a drive-in. Last one, Freddy's Dead. What a way to go out, right? But I got a job at the movie theater in college for that very reason, so that I could just sit around and watch and watch movies for free, which is what I did. And then I went to work for Blockbuster, who I did not enjoy, but again, lots more free movies. So I totally relate to that. Ditarn, today's level of multiplex movie illiteracy is appalling. Agreed. I don't look down on Blockbusters, but it's the only thing people get offered. It's living off of Arby's only diet. The palate is limited. Yes. It's a weird time, like especially like now with the, there was the pandemic disruption and all that. Really, like now you're like the theaters have struggled and you're starting to kind of see movies come back, but we're also seeing some weird stuff. Like who'd have thought you get Cocaine Bear in a theater? But like I try not to be a dick about this. Like if you like Marvel movies, great. If that's your thing, great. If you're only interested in Marvel and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and the big nerd franchises, which I am also interested in some of them, fantastic. I'm not going to fault you for that, but I do get tired of the fact that like nothing can get into a theater anymore unless it's part of some cinematic universe and all this stuff. I just don't I don't know, like it, and now we have this point where with YouTube and the internet and everybody's a film critic, whether they've actually been to film school or learned about movies or not. We just have this conflation of these like mass-produced studio films that they're somehow this high art, and this was the thing that was different in my generation. If I can go into old man mode for a minute, back in my day, someone once told me that after reading my work that they were amazed because I was like such a champion of disposable culture, which was a backhanded compliment, by saying that I stuck up for a lot of stuff that was crap, that would never be remembered, and that didn't need to be stuck up for, like was not worthy of sticking up for critically. And that's true. I have stuck up for plenty of trash in my day. And, but the thing of that is like, as much as I will stick up for terrible horror films, I also go like, this is not a great movie in the sense of this is not Citizen Kane. This is not a Kubrick film. This is not like but these movies are still good and I still like them. But just because I like them doesn't somehow make them better than they are. And that's kind of what's gotten lost in criticism in the last 20 years, is that there's this disconnect that is like, because I really like something, that must make it really good. And that's not how it works. It's, I really like something, even if it has a bunch of problems, is the way to sort of approach that. And we don't see that. And so this is why you get people wanting, best picture Oscars for the Avengers and shit like that. It's like, no, you love it. I get it. I get that you love it. I get that it's super important to you, but like from a critical perspective of, the medium of film as an art form, this is not the best movie. Like, so then you get caught in that, well, you're pretentious because you only like these pretentious films. It's not that I hate most of the Oscar winners. But I don't look at the films that I do like and try to conflate them into being more than they are. I'll just tell you that I like trashy movies. I like this movie because it's trashy and it's got a lot of blood in it. And like, this is funny to me, or it does this one thing really well, but that doesn't make it the greatest movie ever. And like, that's what we've come to in the social media age, is there's this idea that because I like something, that gives it like a lot of artistic value beyond me liking it. So I don't know. Sorry. Tangent. Long tangent there. Is anybody left? Mike, who is your Mount Rushmore of horror? Do I finally get 4 people? I don't know. Argento. I like it. If we're talking directors, we go Argento. Then it gets hard. Romero. I got to put Romero on there. Just for Dawn, Night, Day, and Martin, like those things. And from there, God, yeah. Like it, personally, it's for me, then it's probably like Mario Bava, which is not like a pick that most people would make, but Bava was like a seminal filmmaker in Italy and did some amazing things with low budgets and basically created giallos. And so I think he probably belongs on there. And then, and this will change. Like if you ask me this in 5 minutes, it'll be different. And then I don't know, maybe Carpenter. I think give him a pass because he gets The Thing, he gets Halloween, he gets Big Trouble, which is not necessarily a horror film, but has some horror film elements to it. But, you can make the case for Cronenberg. You can make the case for a bunch of foreign directors, like outside of Italy and all that, like, Japan. So yeah, that's a really tough question. That's what I'm going with now. If you ask me tomorrow, it'll be different. How's that for a non-answer, huh? I like The Relic, Chuck. I think Tom Sizemore did leave us already. I think we lost him last week. Death Dream. Yeah, that's one. I haven't seen that in a long time. My mom took me to see People Under the Stairs. Now she can't stand horror movies. Why? Did it freak her out, Tracy, or did she just not care for it? Oh, goodness. Drive-ins did rule. Yeah, I've seen a ton of Ed Wood's movies. Plan 9 and all that. And, we went on a run, like, I don't know, like back in the early 2000s when they were putting them all out on DVD, where I covered a bunch of them because they were sending them to me all the time. So I Saw the Devil I like a lot, and would love to do. It's just really long. That was the one I was thinking of earlier when I talked about the foreign movies being really long that made super long episodes. That's the one that I have never done that I've always wanted to do, but it's such a long movie that I'm just like, it's intimidating to think of how difficult it would be to script it and get it to work. So Carpenter, his scariest work is not even a horror film. Assault on Precinct 13. Yeah. Carpenter's got a great body of work. And the funny thing about Carpenter is like, you go like, dude, that guy was ahead of his time multiple times. Like he was ahead of the curve on Assault on Precinct 13. He was really kind of ahead of the curve on Halloween as far as slashers went. He was way ahead of the curve on The Thing. Like it took him forever to people to figure out that movie was as great as it was. And then Big Trouble in Little China was the same thing. Like it came out and people were largely indifferent to it, and then it found its audience later. So he's definitely on the Mount Rushmore for me, Carpenter. Oh my goodness, did I just lose my space? There we go. All right. South Korea has been knocking it out of the park. Yes, they have, Theo. I agree. Like that's gone on for more than a decade, really. It's been almost 2 now, I think. I thought that was about Erotic Nights of the Living Dead. Oh, yeah. boy, that's one I've wanted to do. And again, 2 hours. Why is that movie 2 hours, Joe D'Amato? Like, why does that need to be so long? Yeah. Yeah, the whaling is long too. That's it. So like that's it. I am like that they make these meaty movies in Asia. But from the show standpoint, it makes my life difficult because there's so much in them to talk about that I'm like, Jesus, I can't. It's my fault. If I were a normal person and could go like, oh yeah, well I just need to trim this script down and cut out some of these things that are less funny than others, then we could do those things and I would have like a 20-minute video, but I can't do it. I can't kill my darlings, you know. Like, no, that's too funny. It's got to stay. And then nobody laughs at it. So this is my life. You don't watch the original Halloween. You experience it. Yeah, that's an interesting way of coming at it. I think, like I've said before, I always found the most interesting thing about Halloween was I had like one of the Laserdisc versions back in the day that had this really cool segment in the extras that I don't think it's ever turned up on the DVDs or the Blu-rays, and I wish it would because it's like one of my favorites that had footage of Halloween of key scenes without the music and then with the music, so you could see how much the score impacted that film. Because one of the original stories about that was when Carpenter was showing dailies to one of the execs. They're like, this isn't scary. And it was because it didn't have any music yet. And then when she saw it with the music, she's like, oh, holy shit, this is terrifying. So that was always one of those extras that I was like, man, this is a great extra to show people, like, because people don't notice music in movies unless they're like really into movies or music. But it's vitally important to the experience. And so, but I've never seen it show up anywhere else. And that doesn't mean it hasn't. It just means that when I've looked, I haven't seen it, but I remember it from the Laserdisc. You kids remember Laserdisc? Christ, I'm old. Yeah, dude. Laserdisc was my first film school. Yeah, that was my first film school. Like you would rent a Laserdisc, like if you were lucky enough to live in an area that had Laserdiscs for rent. And you were lucky enough to own a Laserdisc player, because not many people did. But that was where you heard film commentary tracks back in the VHS era. They weren't putting that on VHS or anything like that. And so you got the right aspect ratio for movies, and then you got extras and you got director commentaries. And that was my jam as a kid. Like, sure, I'll watch the movie, but then I'm going to show up and watch the director's commentary and see what I can learn about, making movies and all that stuff. So that was pretty, that was the magic of Laserdisc. Plus they looked better. They looked better than VHS did. Sean Connery rocked the thigh-high boots and bikini thong. Are we talking about Zardoz? We gotta be. Yeah, Bob, that's it. Sometimes I don't want to have to think hard about a movie. Sometimes I just want to watch some crap that makes me laugh or go, ooh. I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there. And so I try, that's why you curate your experience. Like, you go like, today I'm in a mood to think about things, or so I'm going to rent this, or, but like a lot of times, yeah, I get it. No, Claudio Fragasso, unsubscribed. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Claudio. He's right on the outskirts. He's on the outside looking in. He's knocking on the door. Wes is funny to me. Wes is one I really thought about when that question came up, because my defense of Wes is always that dude had like a landmark horror film in every decade for like several decades. Like he had Last House, was a game changer in the 70s, and then he had Nightmare on Elm Street in the 80s, and then we got Scream in the 90s, and all of those, like, no matter how you feel about them, were game changer films. So I think, like 3 decades in a row where you have like a genre defining hit and they're not like sequels and like it wasn't like he made Last House on the Left 2 in the 80s or something like that. Like he had different franchises or different films that became like cultural touchstones for the genre. Just pretty impressive. So I'll ask you tomorrow, and Fulci better be up there. Damn right. How much it pains me to leave Fulci off a list. Yeah. Oh, The Shining in the theater. I did not get to see The Shining in the theater in the 80s. I wish. Yeah, Cronenberg is very, very close. You know, that's it. You know, like if we're just sticking with the Rushmore as 4, he's probably like 5. So, and I would totally make the argument with you that if you came to me with the argument that Cronenberg should be on there and Mario Bava shouldn't, I would go okay. I would be okay with that swap. I would not let you take out Mario Bava for like Uli Lommel or somebody like that. But if it was Cronenberg, I'd go okay. I can see that. Let's see. I do not have a date for the first Deep Cut episode. If you weren't here earlier, I said we have 4 of those are done. They are complete and ready to go, except for thumbnails and titles, which is really a short process usually. The problem is that they take a long time to make. They've taken us a long time to make, and so Jay, my editor, is a little bit overwhelmed with them right now. We're trying to figure out whether we can streamline that production process to make them easier on him to make, or if we need to get another editor to do them or another editor to help do them. And then as soon as we figure that out, we'll get back into producing them. Like I have like one more script done, and then I have another script started, and then I have like 3 more that are the 3 that are going to come after that. So we technically have like 8 of them in either done or in production, but I don't want to release them until we know like what the cadence is going to be moving forward. Cause I don't want to put them out every week and then go like, well, we can't, this is not sustainable to put them out every week and then, have to change that schedule. So I would like us to just make 8 of them or 10 of them or whatever. And, but figure out what we're going to do as far as the editing goes before I commit to actually releasing them. But there are 4 of them done. And I'm not a big like guy who toots his own horn about things, but I think they're good. They're not sick flicks. They're more serious. They're video essays. I still think they're fun, and I think the editing in them is really good. I think I'm the worst part of them, actually. I think the videos look better than I sound in them. But yeah, I'm excited to share them with you. I just don't have a date yet. But I will tell you that and B-Movie Babylon are very close to happening, and I suspect you may see B-Movie Babylon first because it's just easier to produce. But my goal with that one is next month, hopefully. So. But, life likes to throw a lot of curves at me. So I don't like to lock anything into stone. What else have we got here? Yeah. Oh, I see. This thing bounced me back. So I'm going through some stuff I've already seen. I don't feel like I'm so far behind. Yeah. Bob Clark. Yeah. Bob Clark. Do you read horror novels? Yes, Alexi. I sure do. I have a copy of Layman's the Cellar, the hardcover limited edition. So fun fact, before I started writing about films, I wrote horror fiction back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I wanted to be, Clive Barker. And so I did a lot of writing and submitting back in the days when, you didn't submit online. You had to put it in an envelope with a self-addressed stamped envelope and send it off. And then they'd be like, you can't send it anywhere else, like no simultaneous submissions. And our turnaround time is 3 months. So like this story would be there for 3 months before they decide on it. And then you get your form rejection letter mailed back to you that you paid for. It's like paying for rejection. It's like some kind of weird S&M thing, I think. And a lot of times that 3 months was not accurate. They'd be like, well, we're just behind we've got so many submissions and we're behind. We don't have enough readers. So they'd have stuff for a year. And, but during that time, I spent a lot of time in the old HorrorNet chat room back at the dawn of the internet. And that was, ground zero for a generation of aspiring horror writers because, like we hung out in there and it was like, Brian Keene hung out in there all the time before he'd even written a book. There's me, there's Jeff Cooper, there's Ryan Harding, a lot of splatterpunk authors who've come along in the years since, and things like that. But one of the real boons of hanging out there was that it was also frequented by guys like Ray Garton and Richard Lehman and Tom Piccirilli and Ed Lee and Brian Hodge and John Skip. And so you were not only hanging out like talking writing and horror and the business with people who were submitting with you, you were also getting like to talk to these guys who had made it, who were legends. And Dick Lehman was a mentor to all of us in that room. And like when we went to World Horror in 2000, we hung out with Dick Lehman the whole weekend, like the whole time we were there. And just the nicest man, super nice man, right? Definitely writes books that were like the equivalent of Italian films. But one of the he's like one of the splatter punks who didn't really get labeled as being a splatter punk, but he was just the nicest man. Lovely wife, lovely daughter, lovely man, helped us all. Would never turn you down if you came to him and said like, hey, I need help with writing this query, or hey, I need help with putting this together to send it to an agent or to a publisher or whatever. And it was just heartbreaking when he died. It was just like a real gut punch. Like that dude was just a great guy, which is so funny because people would be like, the guy who writes this stuff must be a real deviant. And Dick Lehman was just the nicest dude. He was not. He was proof of the concept that horror people are generally almost across the board super normal and super nice. Because he didn't have to help any of us. He is Dick Lehman. And he wasn't the only one in that room who did. Like everybody in that room, like Jack Ketchum, Dallas's past, John Palin. It was a who's who of like horror writers in the early 2000s in there. And, Dick was like the king. Gene, thanks. Hope you have a good time with the mask. Hope it comes out well. So Wormwood movies, people keep telling me to check those out. Someone like told me that like Wormwood was the best zombie movie ever made, which I was like, you're talking crazy. But I guess I keep having people recommend them to me, so I probably do need to check them out at some point. So, yep, The Thing did suffer from coming out the summer of ET. Yes, it did. I mean, you look at it. Oh, sorry, I need a drink. Sorry. You look at it like, and I was there that summer, and I wanted to go see The Thing, but my parents took us to see ET twice. But that was a tough sell that summer because everybody's like, I want the lovable alien, not the one that's going to end humanity. Yeah, Starman is a nice change of pace. Yeah, this is the thing about Carpenter. Like the dude is a horror filmmaker, but he could make films in other genres. Like I think it's sort of a shame that we didn't get more Carpenter films in other genres, like like westerns and shit like that. I mean, technically, I guess Vampires counts as sort of a western, but let's see. What about the movie with the guy that had the mutated? Are you talking about Basket Case, RL? That one's been on the list. That one is one that I'm like, I don't know how it will do, and I always put it off. Have you done classic rubber monster movies like kaiju movies, like Godzilla, Tommy? Is that what you're asking? Because I mean, we just did Jack Brooks, which is definitely a classic rubber monster movie, even though it's newer. But Big Trouble remake. I don't know, Pat. I haven't heard about that in a long time, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means I haven't been paying attention. South Korea is coming out with more bangers than the US. Yeah. Well, like you're at a weird time. It's a weird time for movie making in the US in general, because like so much of it is shifted towards the super high budgeted tentpole event cinematic universe pictures that it's hard to now get funding to make anything that isn't like a blockbuster. You kind of got to go different routes. And so, yeah, I think anywhere that's still just making like a variety of movies, like at different production cost levels is probably just going to come out with more bangers on principle that they can just make more movies. Cause we just dump so much. Like it's not anything now to spend several $100 million on a movie, which was just unheard of 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So RL, yeah, basket case. Yeah, I haven't done it. It's on the list. It's been on the list. Like I said, sometimes I think about doing it and then I always bump it for something else. So I don't know why. I was a projectionist at a drive-in when I was 14 years old. Cat people. Yeah. So I was a projectionist, not at a drive-in. I was a manager and managers ended up having to run the projection booth a lot of times. Yeah, at several theaters, but not a drive-in. And I never got to do cat people. I miss being a projectionist. We were talking about this week. Like in the pantheon of jobs I've had a lot of jobs. But movie theater manager was like my favorite. That and comic book store and Blockbuster was cool, but it was like only because it was a video store. I hated Blockbuster. I just liked the idea of working in a video store. But yeah, and it's funny because like I've had jobs that pay a not insignificant amount of yearly income in marketing. And yet if I had to pick between that and going back to making like $30,000 a year at a movie theater, I'd go to the movie theater. Oh, what's the absolute worst movie to play on a second date with a chick? August Underground's Mortem, Bob. If she dates you after that, you're going to want to break up with her. If you show her that or Slaughtered Vomit Dolls and she's like, so when can I see you again? Run. Yeah, 78 was a fantastic year for horror. We had this discussion, Andy, like one of the early live streams, somebody had a question that we kind of turned into a game, and I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was like, what were the 3 best movies of any given year? And like they were throwing out years, the 3 best horror movies. And like I think we came away with the conclusion. I think 78 did really well, and 81 and 84. And I don't remember what the movies I had for each of those years was, but pound for pound, those three years were really good horror years. So Triangle is a good modern horror. Is that the time travel one where they're on the boat? Frog. If it is, I have seen it and liked it, but I can't remember if that's the one. If you can find a decent copy, there's a terrible Rosemary's Baby sequel you might have fun reviewing. What's the title, Bob? Because I'm not sure I know which one you're talking about. Experience Season of the Witch. I'd like to pass. Thank you. Yes, Spidey. Laserdiscs were awesome for extras. They were like, that was the play if you liked movies back then. Like, you know, you always let the peasants had their VHS. That was like the peasant class was VHS. If you had a Betamax, you were like a rung up the video ladder. But if you had a Laserdisc, man, you were a baller. Laserdisc was absolutely where it was at. And it, you know, it's just like, and it's so funny because like my parents are totally different movie viewers than I am. They don't like the same kind of movies I do. They don't like a lot of the same stuff I like. And what always was wild to me about my parents was they would rent a movie, right? They would go rent it, and then they would bring it home and they would watch it, and then they would take it back. And they might really like the movie, right? But they had seen it, so they were not going to buy it, and they were never going to rent it again. And they might watch it if it was on TV for free, but they really weren't rewatching movies, which was, to me, was just so wild because like when I saw a movie I liked, I wanted to see it like 10 more times because I wanted to figure out, why do I like this so much? What's so cool about this? And then, you know, they wouldn't even watch a movie twice. So the idea that I would watch it multiple times and then want to watch directors talk over this movie was like totally alien to everybody in my family. But that was like my first film school. Like seriously, like you would get a laser disc and you would listen to the commentary tracks and you would watch the extras and you'd be like, oh, that's how they did that. Or that's what he was thinking when he got this shot, or this is how they made this lighting work. And like most people just don't notice that stuff. But if you did, and you were interested in film and you didn't want to have to go pay $100,000 to go to college at USC to learn film, that was the place. So Laserdisc was your school, and it was relatively cheap in comparison. So like a Laserdisc player was like $400 or $500, and Laserdiscs you could rent some places. So uh David, thank you for the super sticker, man. How you doing? Taco Bella Lugosi, why didn't they get you in for Darkness Dogs? Yeah, I don't know. I talked with Andrew before, like when the second one came out, and we talk. We're friends. I don't know. They just never asked. So I would have loved to have done them, especially the ones where they were, so Italian horror heavy. I was like, oh, why wouldn't you have me come do those? But I don't know. So Luke, thank you. I'm sorry, I answered that already, but I'm going to answer it again for you for the super chat. The origin of football practice it's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 gag that was in Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie, when Cal wakes up on the plane that Exeter has sent for him to take him to his island. They do the joke. He wakes up and Servo does the football practice line. And it was also in Pod People, and I'm sure there's probably a couple other episodes it was used in. And it's just something they do when somebody wakes up, and it's my little way of paying homage to, the guys who have made this style of show possible. And it actually comes from Shocker, oddly enough. Like, that's the place where that actually came from, that they took it from. So that's the origin of football practice. We've not had a lot of football practice the last couple of weeks. We've got some more coming at least, but yeah. All right. What else have I missed back here? All right. Let's see what we got. Have you seen Severance? Yeah, a while back, and I don't remember much about it. Like, that was I swear I saw that back when I was still in California. So that was like the earlier 2000s, if I'm thinking of the right movie. And that was like when I was seeing a bunch of stuff, and I don't remember much about it. Yes, The Triangle is a good horror movie. Yeah, the one with the time travel on the boat. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. I've only seen it once, though. I would add, like, if you like that one, you should check out, like, if you're into the time travel thing, what is it? Time Crimes is another good one you probably like. Halloween 3. Oh, dude. I'm not touching Halloween 3. Is underrated. I'm sorry. I'm not. That's bait, and I'm not taking it. Yeah, Turtle. I still have some laser discs and nothing to play them on as well. And I just can't. I cannot bring myself to part with them. I'm just yeah. I'm like, someday I'm going to find another Laserdisc player, but yeah, so far no luck on that. Oh, did I lose my place again? Let's see. Oh, I did. I lost my place. Oh, this chat doesn't help me at all, man. Just bounces all over the place as soon as I touch a button. I'm going to scroll back and find out where we were. All right, so yeah, this is a good time, I guess, while I'm doing this. While I'm trying to find my place, I can see if I can do two things at once. So we talked about Barbarian, meh, fine, not terrible, not great, just sort of there, right? Deadstream, thumbs up, liked it. X, thumbs up, liked it. Scream 5, big thumbs down, did not like it one bit. So this put me off seeing Scream 6 because I don't want more of these people in my life. So yeah. And then the last movie, we came down to last week. I've been busy this week. The last movie I saw came down to it was one of two. It was going to either be Skinamarink, which is very divisive, or the new Hellraiser. And I went, Skinamarink is very divisive, and I don't know if I'm like I've had people both tell me I will love it, and I have had people tell me I will hate it. And so I'm really curious, like how I'm going to come down on that one. And I was just like, after Scream 5, I kind of need a palate cleanser. So it either needs to be something that know I'm going to love, or I know I'm going to hate. and so I went like, all right, let's just do Hellraiser, right? Let's do Hellraiser. And I thought, like, going into it, I'm like, I don't know what to expect from this, but I'm expecting to hate it. I mean, I'm going in with an open mind, but I'm really not sure how I'm going to feel about it because, like, Hellraiser does not have a good lineage after like the first two films. Like everybody knows how terrible the Hellraiser sequels are, and then we get the fat Pinhead, and it's just a rough run, right? And it always breaks my heart because people always ask me who's your favorite horror villain, and I'm like, well, it's Pinhead. I've always liked Pinhead, because he talks and he's eloquent, and I love the mythology of the Cenobites and Barker and all that stuff. And so I'm like, this is probably gonna suck. And then I put it in, and I actually liked it, which was not something I expected at all. Absolutely did not expect that to happen. It's not my favorite movie. It's not like, I'm not like gonna argue that it's like some great piece of Hellraiser or great piece of horror cinema, but I would probably put it behind, like, if I were ranking them, two is my favorite. Like, two is my dark horse favorite because I just love the cheesy apocalyptic grandeur of two, that they have to go into hell, and hell is not what you expect it to be. And, Chenard getting turned into a Cenobite, and Julia's back. And, like, I love two. And so two is my favorite. And then one is obviously a classic film. And then it's pretty downhill from there, right? Like, I don't really care for three. I like the poster for three a lot. I have it somewhere. And then Bloodline is a disaster, except that I will always argue that the beginning of Bloodline, set in the Revolutionary War era of France, is like fantastic. Like, they should have made the whole movie about that. I would have watched the hell out of that, but then it gets into space and shit. And then the less said about the direct to sequel films, which were sometimes films that weren't even intended to be Hellraiser films, shoehorned into Hellraiser, etc., the better. So in that regard, I think this new film is better than all of that stuff. But that's a low bar, right? Like, how hard is it to be better than Hellraiser 3 or Bloodline? but I really liked what they've done with the mythology. Like, they have taken the core Barker mythology and they have tweaked it in a way that makes sense and I'm okay with. And the Cenobites are, like, it's different in the sense that Barker's characters were like, the innocent were always protected. Like, the truly innocent would never open the box, right? So there was never any danger of an innocent, like, technically being killed by the Cenobites, because why would an innocent have the box in the first place? And then you kind of get Kirsty, which throws that all into to chaos. But this time you don't have that. And so it's interesting. And I just thought, like, I liked the new Pinhead. Like, she was great to me. Like, she's not Doug Bradley, but as far as, like, if you're going to get someone to take on that role, she's different enough, but yet still enough like the Pinhead, that, like, I'm like, okay, I can live with this. Like, wouldn't be my choice. I would get Doug Bradley to come back and do it, right? But if that's not a thing, I'm okay with this. So, yeah, I thought, like, I was really surprised and I feel like I'm, like, almost apologizing for it, which I shouldn't, because I thought it was pretty well done. And I would like to see more stories in that Hellraiser universe. Like, I think there are interesting things there that they could do, which I'm sure they won't, but all in all, I came away from it, like, pretty happy. Like, and maybe that's because I had lowered expectations going in, which is always a problem with these films, but all in all, I thought it was pretty good. So didn't hate it, which is something I really would have bet I would have hated that one. So everybody I know in my family was surprised I liked it. So Halloween 3 should have just been called Season of the Witch. Absolutely. And you know what's funny about that is, like, I know the story about, like, well, we're going to take it in a different direction and it'll be a new Halloween film every year and blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I think that was an admirable idea. I just think that Season of the Witch was a weird friggin' idea for your first movie to kind of break away from the Myers slasher story. So the Motel Hell. Yeah, that's the answer. Animotion. The most memorable scarring Fangoria cover from childhood is the Motel Hell pighead image. Like, I talked about that on a Twitch stream the other day. One of the reasons that I don't really care for Motel Hell is because I remember being a kid and seeing that Fango cover with the pig head and the chainsaw and all that, and thinking, like, this movie looks terrifying and sick and amazing. And then when you get it, it's kind of like, oh, it's Rory Calhoun. It was like about as scary as my granddad. But yeah, that's a great cover. Great cover. Jonah, good day. Always a pleasure to see your streams. Well, thank you, man. Thank you for coming by, and thank you for the super chat. Hope you're having a good time. I'm just sitting here blabbing like I always do. This is basically what you're going to get in a podcast, man. Just me blabbing. That's what I'm good at. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, Carpenter is a great musician on top of movie. He's a really simple musician, but that works for his films. Like, I mean, when you see him break down the Halloween theme and, you know, all that, you're like, oh, I'm not even a musician, but I can understand that. And that's pretty simple, right? But yeah, it works. It works. He's one of those guys who like knows what he needs, and he doesn't need to dress it up or make it more than what he thought, you know, like to show off or anything like that. So props to him. Laser discs. I've seen a few long ago. Yep. I actually, I still had a laser disc player as late as like 2008, but when I came back from California, no laser disc players came back with me. John, is Titanic the best Lovecraft movie? I'm just gonna say yes. I don't know that, but I don't know how we consider that one Lovecraftian. I wish it were more Lovecraftian. It'd be more exciting if like Cthulhu were trying to sink the ship. Yeah, Paul or Pat, director's commentaries and extras are cool. Like, I don't listen to as many as I used to. Like, I used to really be like a hardcore nerd about that stuff. Like if there was one on there, I was gonna watch it, right? But now it's kind of like, you know, like it depends who it is and stuff. But I did just watch the one for Session 9 because I was working on something that involves that movie. There's a little insider info for you. And so, you know, it's interesting. Like there's lots of little things in there that they'll talk about that you'd never know otherwise. And if you're interested in making films, that's, you know, that's important. Like that's how you hear those stories and learn without going to film school. And I just used to find them like, I never even wanted to make movies. That was always the funny thing is I just wanted to talk about movies and write about movies. And like, you would just learn a lot of things from commentary tracks that, you know, would be lost to time otherwise. Sigh. I only knew one person who had a laser disc, and I remember watching some of the Kid and Play movies. Well, did you watch the commentaries? Oh, goodness. Satan's Triangle. Doug McClure. You know, if it's Doug McClure, it's good. Serpent in the Rainbow is underrated. Yes, absolutely. Strange Finger. Absolutely, Professor. Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that I always would like to talk about, and we will never get on Sick Flicks because I just don't think it works. But that would be a deep cut one because it's interesting, not only because that film is really great and based on a true story, like true events inspired it and stuff like that, but that was during that little run where there were like several voodoo movies, like relatively mid-sized budget voodoo movies all at once. There was that one and The Believers, and like I think there were a couple others as well. And like I would like to do like a deep cut about why did we suddenly have like 4 voodoo movies all at once? Like what was going on in Hollywood that week that everybody's like, yeah, we need a voodoo movie. Ronnie, thank you for the $5 super chat. Will I ever review Bouquet of Guts and Gore? Those were all on the list. I love Steven at Unearthed Films. I've been a longtime supporter of Unearthed. When he started, I covered a lot of his stuff back in the day, you know, to help him, you know, get press for those videos. The stuff he was putting out on disc and all that. I love him. And I dig those movies, but I don't think YouTube will make it easy for me to cover them on Sick Flicks. They're just like, I don't know how we would ever cut around enough of the gore and stuff to appease them as they keep like demonetizing me over more and more tame things. So I don't know. It's something something we might try. It's something like if we ever do the patron, Samantha's patron sponsor a video thing where, you pay me to commission a video for the right price, that would be one I would probably do. And I would just take the beating on it. But yeah, as long as I could do it without getting age gated. So, but yeah, tough one to do. Tough one. And I hate this. Like I had this rant on Twitter about YouTube this week because of the Nightmare Sisters demonetization. And it's like, I very much feel like frustrated with sick flicks sometimes because this is, like I started a show to cover gore movies and I didn't want to spoil all the gore in them or anything, but I wanted to be able to show you something. And now as time has gone on, I can just show less and less and less. And I'm like, I've literally made my show about gore films, like G-rated and family friendly. And the problem with that is not that I have done it, but that it's still not enough for them. Like they're still coming at me every week with, you can't show this and you can't say that. And it's like, I'm showing stuff that would pass on network TV. Like that is not even as bad as like a Criminal Minds episode. And you're telling me it's still too much. Like how am I supposed to do this show? How am I supposed to continue to, make a living on this platform if I can't show anything? Like I have to make like family flicks. Is that my new show? I can just watch Barney videos and make jokes about them or something, because they're just not letting us show gore without like hitting me with demonetizations like every week. If and we're neutering them. I'm not like trying to slip anything in, like I'm like, if you tell me what I can't show and you're clear about it, I will just not show it to avoid the headache. But they never can show you what they won't even tell you what they're flagging. Like with Nightmare Sisters, I never knew what they were flagging until the very end. Someone had went, well, there's sex and nudity in here. And there's no nudity in that video. We blurred everything out. Like there's a ton of blurs in there. So, like you're going to be scandalized by pixelated boobs that you can't see. like, come on, guys. We're like not 12. Say, thank you for the super chat. Has your taste in horror changed over the years? Yeah, like as a kid, I was like everybody else. I grew up in the 80s. I grew up with American slasher cinema, and it was all Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, a little bit of Chucky, lots of Reanimator, Hellraiser, it was all the classic 80s horror slasher gore stuff, right? And then because that was what you could easily get back then. Like it was hard to get a lot of stuff. And then by like the mid 80s, we started reading more Fangoria. We started reading like Gore Zone and, some of these other horror mags. And so you were reading about these things and you were seeing pictures of like The Beyond, and you were seeing pictures of, Argento films and stuff like that. And like, then you go down to your video store and you're like, I got to find this Tenebrae movie. And they don't have it because they have a version called Unsane that's missing like 20 minutes. And so you would rent those like sometimes if you were smart enough to make the connection that like, oh, this is the American version of Tenebrae and it's called Unsane. So we're going to rent it. And then you go home and it's literally missing 20 minutes of movie for no discernible fucking reason why they would chop out 20 minutes of Tenebrae. But, and then you're like, this sucks. It doesn't even make sense because it's missing 20 minutes, which you probably don't know at the time because nobody was chronicling that kind of thing back then. And you'd be like, what are these people talking about? These Italian movies suck. So, but eventually you would learn that like, oh, these are cut versions and this is not what they're seeing. And so you're like, well, how do I get the uncut version? And then that sends you down the rabbit hole of like, well, you're going to need to order bootlegs from like Video Search of Miami or Revoc or, one of these companies who like get a copy off a Japanese laser disc uncut and dub it onto VHS. And then they'll sell it to you for like $20. And again, this is like pre-internet, early internet. So you were literally like writing a check for $20 and sticking it in an envelope and sending it to some PO box in South Florida and hoping that you would get your movie eventually. And then when you did get it, you never knew like what's it gonna look like. Like, is this gonna be like a real dub, like straight off the laser disc to an SP high quality VHS tape? No. Most of the time it was a dub of a dub of a dub of a dub. And the colors all washed out and the tracking sucks, and but you got your movie, right? So, but that was and where my taste started to change, kind of like that's where my taste expanded. Like, we started to see some of these films in their uncut forms, thanks to these bootleggers, gray market guys, and then like what. But I said, like, the first time I saw Suspiria, I was like a freshman in high school, and I didn't like it at all. Like, I was like, oh, the music's great, but like, I don't understand what the fucking point of this movie is. Like, it's none of it makes sense. It's all like disjointed and weird, and then because Suspiria is just not a good starter point for Italian horror films. Then I saw Demons, and when I saw Demons, everything clicked. I'm like, oh, now I get it. They make these movies, and they're supposed to be cheap and weird and sort of nightmarish, but gory. And then with that understanding, then I started to appreciate more of the Euro horror stuff, because it was just a totally different vibe than what you were going for in American slasher cinema at the time. But yeah, that was where the big change happened. And then, like I had, the periods where, like I was really going for the craziest, goriest, most fucked up movies you could find. And, I like a lot of those. But like now it's pretty set, like I like a lot of things, the things that I don't like. I don't need to see any more of to know that I don't like them. Like I don't ever really need to see another pissed off Japanese girl ghost movie. I've seen enough. I know they're not really for me. So, but yeah, it's absolutely evolved over time. Like, like I was like a typical kid. We had what we had right here. And then as the internet and all of that stuff came along, we just got access to a lot of movies that you couldn't just go down and rent, but you still could get them. Like early Netflix, when you could just rent. Netflix had a killer selection back when they were sending you discs. So yeah, we definitely have changed as the times have changed, and I'm always interested in new stuff, like things from places that I don't know of, or movies. That stuff fascinates me because everyone's like in Hollywood land and makes the same stuff, and I'm just interested in weird movies. That was an hour-long answer to a simple question. I'm sorry. The Hills Have Eyes 2 is my guilty pleasure, along with Jaws 4. Yeah, those are guilty pleasures, all right. You a big fan of those dog flashbacks, huh? I remember seeing The Hills Have Eyes 2 for the first time as like a kid. I must have been like a teenager. And even as a teenager, I'm like, wait a minute, is the dog having a fucking flashback? And Jaws 4, man. I'm such a Jaws nerd that I not only have seen Jaws 4 a bunch of times, but I read the novel back, the novel tie-in back when it came out. And I will always laugh about the fact that the novel tie-in has a whole subplot that the shark is controlled by a voodoo priest, and he's like bringing the shark to the Bahamas to get the Brodies because of his drug business or something, as I recall. But like, how did that not make it in the movie? I would like the movie more if they'd have put the voodoo storyline in. Maneater. I don't know if I know that series. After Dark Horror Fest. Those are all Lionsgate, which is why we kind of haven't done them. Like, I have reached this point with Lionsgate where if I do them, I know we're going to have to go all the way to the wall with them in terms of the appeals, and that generally speaking, I will win, but it's a long drawn out process. And if I don't win, we basically have to go to court, which will cost me a bunch of money. But so I'm pretty selective about the Lionsgate stuff that I will cover, because I know everyone is going to be a fight on some level, and I try to pick and choose my battles, like which ones are worth the fight and which aren't. And a lot of times I just like the After Dark Horror Fest stuff was interesting enough in its day, but none of it has stuck with me, like to the point where I'm like, oh, I'd love to talk about that again or cover it. I think it would be interesting to talk about it as a sort of retrospective, like, hey, there was a time in the early 2000s where people cared enough about horror movies that they were putting together these, these little film fests, but like any of the individual films, none of them really stick out to me anymore. Like I saw all of them, but I couldn't name half of them. Oh, I watched The Keep on laser discs. Yeah, yeah. The Keep is a movie that like we need that on Blu-ray for sure. And that's one of those ones that was, yeah, I saw it on laser disc as well back in the day. That was the first time I ever saw it. Uh yeah, I would love to see that happen, but I don't think it ever will. Although never say never. I've seen weird shit, man. Like Severance somehow got Cruel Jaws out for a while. You knew that wasn't going to last, but I own one. And I never thought we'd see that either. So, yeah, and yet Craven uses his goodwill from screen to make his dream project about music education teacher Meryl Streep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The less said about that, the better. Yeah, Rob. Are we not getting enough thumbs? Let's make sure we get enough thumbs up in here. My Titan, are you a fan of Doctor Sleep? I haven't seen the movie. I read the book. The movie was like one of those things that's been on my list, and I just never got around to seeing it. Like it got on the list because I like King and I like the book well enough. And then the movie got a lot of buzz, and then it came out, and I was getting ready to watch it one night, and something came up, and I didn't, and I've never gone back and watched it. But I would like to see it and see how it measures up. It's a weird sort of like it's a weird companion piece to The Shining. Like even the book is a weird companion piece. Like I'm sort of surprised that he wrote it, like in the sense that it's nice to see Danny Torrance again and where he's at and all that, but it's like such a different story from The Shining that it's like, I don't know, it's just an odd choice, but I liked it well enough. Yeah, we can't forget Roger Corman, man. Hello, Slaughter Count. How are you? Ed, I will keep them coming as long as I can. As long as YouTube doesn't kill me. Bronson, what are my thoughts on Vampire in Brooklyn? I hate it. That is a movie that you go like, why did this get made? Matt, thank you. Yes, YouTube does need a taste of my pimp hand, and I would be happy to oblige them. I'm probably persona non grata at the YouTube offices. They probably have a picture of me up at the door, like, don't let this guy in. Oh, my goodness. Brian, thank you. Hope you're well. Hey, Andy. If I were into 50-year-old bearded men, Mike would be my boyfriend. Sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard, Bob, that I've heard really mixed things about the movie. I know a lot of people who like it though, so I'm curious to see it, see what it is, because I don't even remember the book at this point. Like I read it when he first released it, back around 2013 or whatever. So, name a few movies that you are looking for. Honestly, I don't know right now, nice fan. I'm like bogged down with stuff. I will see if I can make up a list later. Where does all this debris come from? I don't know. It's probably dead skin. Professor Strangefinger. It's probably just dead skin. Think about that. Uwe Boll is a genius. Yes, he is. That guy. He is sort of a genius. Like, think about it. Like, that guy is a marginal talent, right? Not a hack. Like, he's not totally untalented. But he is marginally talented, we'll say. And but he got all that attention for his films by like going like, yeah, well, you know what? I'm gonna box these fat schlubby critics. I mean, that's kind of genius. Like that got a lot of press. I want an autographed pic of Mike. Come to an event. Come to one of these cons. I'm going to be doing more convention appearances this year. I don't know where yet. I do know where in some instances. I'm not allowed to say yet. But yes, we are hard at work. I just talked to my guy this week. We are going to be at some more horror conventions before the end of the year. Some very soon, some later in the summer, some in the fall. I am committed to coming out to meet the people. We had a good time in Atlanta. Like Atlanta was not like a huge show, and like, but people came out. I was touched that people came out specifically to see me because there were some challenges with guest services didn't even know who I was when people would ask. They're like, "Who?" And it's funny because I was right by Critical Drinker. I'm sure they knew him, who was very nice, by the way. I had to chat with Critical Drinker before I left, and super nice dude. Super nice dude. Was very nice to me, which counts for a lot. But I got to talk to him. But the con was great. Like we had a good time, and I'm like, shit, yeah, I'll do more of these. You guys want to bring me out to stuff? I'll come and meet the people and do some panels. And like we had a panel. I had a panel. I hosted James O'Barr's panel, which went very well. I got to sit next to James O'Barr for 3 days, which was like the biggest fanboy moment I've had in a long time. Like getting to sit next to the guy who created the crow and looking over his shoulder while he's drawing crow stuff for people and all of that. And then I had a panel about, making it as a film critic on YouTube, and we had people show up for it and people liked it. And so, yeah, it was a good time. We'll have some more, I'll have more details about upcoming appearances as soon as we're locked in and I'm allowed to talk about them. But I hope if I'm near you, you will come out and hang out. Like I took a lot of pictures with people and all that stuff. It was a good time. I had a good time. A lot of drinks. I did have a lot of drinks because the bar at the hotel had happy hour, like free drinks every night. I loaded up. Oh, did the feed die? I hope not. I think we dropped a few frames. No, I didn't even drop any frames. Yes, horror people are super nice. Like this is what I say all the time. Like every fandom has some assholes, right? But horror, like by and large, horror people have always been cool. Like whether I'm there as a fan or I'm there as a writer or a YouTuber or whatever, like people came to see me at the show and I was super happy. And like a lot of times people would come to see me and they would talk and they would buy their shirt or hang out and take their picture and then they would go. And I'm like, no, you can hang out. Like usually like a lot of fandoms, you'll get the guy who just won't leave, who doesn't understand that like, at some point he has to go and like you're not there to just hang out with him. You're there to meet a bunch of people. And we did not have that. I've never had that with horror people. Like they come up, they're very respectful. They're like, hey, can I get a picture? Can I get this? And I'm like, of course. And yeah, but like, people, and then people were like, okay, it's great to meet you. And then they went on their way. And I'm like, you don't have to go, like I'm not so popular that I got like some huge line here. You can hang out. But, yeah, so I hope if I end up in your neck of the woods, you'll come out and say hello and hang out. I'll have more merch. We got merch. Rob, dinner was good. I'm glad. I'm still here. What type of comedy do you enjoy? I don't know how to categorize comedy, Chuck, but like the comedy movies that I love Tommy Boy. I love The Big Lebowski. Those are like, like I like stupid comedies. So here's the one that we go on like, like I went on Pizza's show and it was like, what movie does everyone love that you think is meh was the topic, right? And so we had a bunch. And then he did another show recently that I was not on, but it was what movie does everyone hate that you love? And I'm like, dude, I should have been on here because the answer is Freddy Got Fingered. I think Tom Green's Freddy Got Fingered is hilarious. Like it's stupid and it's supposed to be, and it's a big practical joke that he could get a studio to give him millions of dollars to make this nonsensical movie. And it's like an Andy Kaufman skit to me. So, and it just cracks me up like all the time, every time I see it. So, but yeah, I'm not like a real highbrow comedy guy. Like I just like stupid shit. Hey, Plague Seeds, how you doing, man? Yeah, horror conventions and festivals everyone I've ever been to. And I like, this is my first one. Atlanta was my first con in a long time because like I used to go a lot. Like I used to go to E3 every year as press. And I used to go to like various ones in the Bay Area when I lived out there, like, if they had a film festival or some type of con or whatever. And they were cool. Like people were always nice at them and everything. I always found them a little bit like sort of sad in a way because like sometimes you show up and And it's like, oh, here's a guy who was like a bit character in some movie 25 years ago, and he's just doing the con circuit because he hasn't had work, or, like, people only remember him as like this peripheral character in some film from 30 years ago, which I always find kind of like sad. I mean, it's cool that, that you're still popular enough that people want to see you 30 years later, but like, it's always a little bit sad too. So I used to find them kind of like a little bit of a bummer sometimes. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be the guy who's like for me, it'd be like for me going to a con now and then billing me for Beat the Geeks. Like Beat the Geeks was 20 years ago. Like I'm still the horror geek, but like selling me as Beat the Geeks is something like nobody remembers Beat the Geeks except us old people. Like I talk to people all the time who are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, we were on Comedy Central, seriously. So I don't want to be the guy who's like 20 years later, like trading in on something he did like when he was 20 and now he's 40. So, but that's not me. Like I have a show to promote and all this stuff. So it's fun to go, and everybody is super nice. Like horror fans are great. Everybody was like really nice. I took lots of pictures with cosplayer. We had lots of cosplayers. We had Michael Myers. We had Jason, Sadako from The Ring. We had a Great Millennia from Elden Ring, and Blade the wolf guy. Like there's some fantastic costumes, and yeah, it was a good time. I had a good time. I was not sure when we went, like, because I'm a recluse. I don't care to travel a whole lot. Like I don't like plane rides or long car drives, and I'm a creature of habit. I like to be in my house with all my stuff and my gym, and have my routine. And so for me to go, it was like a real test. Like, will I like this, or will I go and be miserable for 4 days and just can't wait to come home and never do this again? And I actually had a good time. So like, yeah, let's do more of those. That was fun. It's nice to get out of the house and to meet people. So I'll be honest, I'd really love a podcast of Mike just covering horror books, novels. I'd love to do that because like I'm very well read in the genre. Like before I started covering films, like I said, I wanted to be a fiction writer, a horror writer. And I have read like I've read all the landmarks, and can talk about splatterpunks and gothics and all this stuff for days. I just don't know how much audience interest there'd be in that kind of thing, because like some people just don't care to read. But maybe someday, or maybe in B Movie Babylon, we'll work in some episodes on like books that should be horror movies or something like that, so we can kind of tie them in, because I do like to talk about that stuff. Return of the Living Dead is the best zombie movie. I like that you guys think that, but I do not agree. There is no universe where Return of the Living Dead beats Dawn or Cemetery Man for me. Just not a thing. But I'm cool with you guys liking that one. I'm cool. It's not like Halloween 3 where I go, what the fuck are you guys talking about? I get it. I get why you like Return of the Living Dead. I like it too. I just would not put it up there with Dawn. Red House of the Beast, too young. Yeah. Yeah, that's the funny thing about Dick's books. Yeah. Yeah. Dick's books are very much like B movies. They are very much B horror movies. Lots of sex and lots of violence, and like some really like a lot of times like threadbare characters and who would do weird things like that weren't always like grounded in reality type things, but like it was really the equivalent of reading a B movie. And if you loved B movies and monster movies and like movies with nudity and guts and blood and all that, they were like that in book form, like The Cellar and the Beast House, and the one shit, I can't even think of the one. Oh my god, the one where Jack the Ripper comes to America. Yeah, like he wrote he was a book machine, Dick Lehman, and they're all fun if you like that trashy B movie in book form vibe, which is I love. And so I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. I love that stuff. So really is the closest thing to like reading a B movie. E.T. was a thing. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Carpenter. Yeah, I wish somebody would let Carpenter do a Western. I think that would be fantastic. I don't think we'll ever see it now, because I think Carpenter has reached this point of his life where he's happy to just be retired and play video games and smoke and watch basketball. I don't know that we'll ever get a Another Carpenter film. Squirrelbo, how you doing, man? Will we ever get some video game streams? Well, hell yes, you will, because that's what I've been working on over on Twitch. I've just been busy. Some of you have seen like I've done some lives over on Twitch. Sometimes the lives over on Twitch are like this, where I just hang out and chat and shoot the shit. Sometimes I shoot the shit while playing a video game, because I like to play video games. And so like the problem of my life is that I work for myself, and I'm a bit of a workaholic because the show requires so much time to produce, and now I've got like 3 shows coming. So I feel guilty anytime I'm not working now. Like if I'm taking time off and watching a movie or playing a video game, or reading a book, I feel like, oh my God, I should be fucking working. Like, what am I doing? I'm failing. So my solution was like, if I get a Twitch set up, we can go over there and I can live stream there and I can play games there and people can hang out. I can play games with you guys if you guys ever want to play an online game or whatever. And it's also great. I will tell you guys this because you're here. You're here and there are like 300 people here, 300 to 400 people on average when I do one of these lives, right? If you go over there, it's like 30. So it's way more conversational over there as far as there are fewer people. So you get like a lot more like conversation. Like I'm not just trying to answer questions and not miss stuff. So it's cool that way. But yeah, like I think, like I had this idea over there, like I would like to just, because I would not go over there. I would just stay on YouTube because YouTube is my audience is here. I live stream here. Everything's good. Right. But I worry all the time that YouTube is going to get tired of me at some point and just go, we're just done with this channel. Right. And if that happens, I'm kind of screwed. I mean, I have all my videos and shit. We could make another channel, but it'll be like whack-a-mole. They'll just keep smacking me around, every time we try if they ban me or whatever. And so I'm like, well, we should have a different platform, a backup platform, right? So if something happens, everybody knows like, hey, Mike's not around. Mike missed a Wednesday. What's going on? If you come over to Twitch, then I'd be there and I'd be able to talk and explain and we can figure out where we were going next type thing. But, yeah, it's like, it's just a fun little hangout place. It's just like here. It's really not any different. You only have to go over there when it's live. Like you don't have to watch videos over there or anything. And, like I said, it's much smaller. So if you get in here and you're like, God, I can't get a shout out or attention because there's so much chat going on. You have a way better odds of over there. So that's my plug for you to come. But yeah, so my goal is to play some games over there. Like I really want to do like some horror games, right? Because I love games anyway. And I'm like, oh my God, I should really just stream Manhunt because like if you've never seen Manhunt, if you have, you probably love it and will watch me play it because I'll curse a lot. And if you haven't, like, you really have to see Manhunt because it's like a snuff film video game. And I love it. But it'd just be fun to stream, I think. Although I'll probably get in trouble for it. But yeah. But yeah, definitely some stuff going to happen over there. I don't know how regularly. I'm trying to make it regular. But with all the stuff going on with Deep Cuts right now, I was doing streams over there. And then we had the Deep Cuts issue. And now I kind of pulled back until we resolved that. But my intention is to go back over there and do more streaming. And I would really like to do, if like people were interested, a show called Live Scream, which is basically where, I come on live and we do like an hour and we go through like what's going on in the world of horror, like what's the hot new trailer everybody's talking about or shit like that. Because like you guys always ask me about it and this way I could just answer it and we can talk about it. We can watch it together and it'd be super, right? Or not. I see, this is what I mean. I don't need more projects, but I'm constantly making up more projects. Yeah, Jack Ketchum, Dallas was a great dude. That was another one when he passed. Like we have lost a lot of like big horror authors in the last few years. Dallas, aka Jack Ketchum, Dick Lehman, Tom Piccirilli, John Palin, J.F. Gonzalez. It's a crazy list of talented writers and yeah, Ketchum was a great dude. Great dude, really funny to be around once he was ready to let you in. Dallas was not the easiest nut to crack as far as like, getting to meet him the first time and getting into like being friendly with him. But yeah, great dude, and wrote some really incredible books. Like The Girl Next Door is one of the most harrowing books I've ever read. So in terms of gross anatomy, yeah, the new Hellraiser is a good film. I thought it was good. So absolutely. All right, what do we got here? You leave Jack Burton alone. Yeah, see, I'm very mixed on the idea of a remake. Like the remake will never remove the original, blah blah blah. But like, why do we need another? Why do I need someone else to be Jack Burton? I don't really need that. All right, we talking about James Hong? That guy's still alive. Makes me happy every day. Yeah. Xenon tube. No. Is that code? That might be code. I think of a letter tube. I don't know, Dietarn. I'd have to look that up. All right, what do we got here? Brain damage, yeah. Frankenhooker. Oh, fuck. I probably can't even say it. I got in trouble for saying Hollywood Chainsaw Escorts. I probably wasn't allowed to say the FH word. Flesh for Frankenstein. That's another one I'd like to do. I'd like to do that one and the Blood for Dracula, but I don't know. I don't know how those are going to go over. The sleaziest, filthiest horror movie that doesn't have the P word. Yeah, Patrick Still Lives. Giallo in Venice. Although I guess maybe that counts as the P word. I don't know. Now that I think about it. Yeah, I don't know. That's one I have to think about because I want to get that answer right. I don't have to think about that one. Lair of the White Worm. Boy, I haven't seen that in forever. Yeah, Brain Damage was the one. I don't know, Richard. I don't know if I have to think they fixed the aspect ratio on RoboCop by this point because there have been so many versions. I would hope, but I can't say definitively. But I would think they would have by now. My parents were the same way. Yeah, they wouldn't let you. Yeah. My parents are cool. Like my parents are super cool. They are super liberal and as far as like what we could watch and do and all that stuff. But yeah. They weren't watching a movie twice and you weren't getting to rent it again. We paid for that once, son. We're not paying to rent it again. Yeah, I looked forward to Starlog and not so much Starlog, but Fangoria. My dream job as a kid in junior high was to write for Fangoria. Like that was the dream gig. That's what I wanted to do. I'm like, somebody gets paid to go on sets where they're making horror movies and talk to these people. Like, holy shit, this is exactly what I want to do. And then by the time I got to high school, I still wanted to write for Fangoria. I wanted to run Fangoria. I wanted to be the editor at Fangoria. I wanted Tony Timpone's job. And I actually talked to Tony once. He's a super nice guy. But by high school, I also wanted to write for The Source because I loved hip hop. And I thought, God, somebody pay me to write about horror movies and go hang out with rappers? Like, this is like perfect. Didn't make it to either place. I didn't try very hard, though. Like, I had a great writing career. I just never got to either of those places. David, I'm glad you caught it, too. I'm well. I'm a little stuffy today. It's allergy season in Florida, so... Burial Ground is weird, but it is awesome, Zachary. Yeah, Starlog. Like, I miss a lot of magazines. That's like one of those things that we don't talk enough about, like how the internet has killed magazines. And I miss a lot of game magazines. I miss the old days of The Source, the old days of Fangoria, Gore Zone, Dark Side. Like, there's still some left. Like, there's still Rue Morgue and all that, but it's just not the same. I don't know what it is. Like, I think it's just because now we have the internet and you like by the time you get a magazine, you know all the shit that's in it. Like you've already read all the scoops, have been online for 3 weeks before the magazine comes out. Oh, you worked as a PA on Vampires? Holy crap. Yeah, I met Carpenter at E3. God, must have been 2000, the year the Thing game came out. He was there, and so I was literally first in line for his signing. Like I camped out there for hours to be first in line for John Carpenter's signing, and he was super cool to me. And like I actually talked to him for quite a while. Like I was the guy I was just talking about earlier, the guy who doesn't know he should leave, except that Carpenter kept talking to me, so I kept staying. But we had a long conversation. He's a super nice guy, which is funny because I wasn't sure how he would be in that setting because he's a little cantankerous, and I get it as a cantankerous guy. I'm the same. When I'm in an event, I'm always super nice though, unless you spit on me or something, I'd probably be mad. But yeah, he was super nice, and he talked to me for like half an hour while he was signing other people's stuff, and I felt bad afterwards because I'm like, oh, these people really wanted to get like some FaceTime with John Carpenter, but he's talking to me. I didn't feel bad enough to leave. I have read some Sean Hudson. I have not read Slugs though. It's one that I absolutely need to read because we covered it on the show. Yeah, Rob, I don't get that either. The watching movies not watching them more than once, or yeah, like I read books more than once. Like I'll go back. There are books I go back and revisit, once every year, once every 3 years, whatever. Like for a long time, I had like every 2 years I'd revisit like it. Uh, you know, uh, there's just like a lot of stuff. And I mean, I get it. There's a lot of stuff that like when I'm rereading a book that I'm not reading something new. And as I'm now 50, I realize the amount of time I have left is finite and that I didn't realize when I was younger. But at the same time, sometimes I just like stuff and want to go back and re-experience it. And it's so odd to me. Like my mother now is more like would watch things again and again or more than once type thing. But my dad is still pretty much like he's not going to rent the same movie twice, which is absolutely alien to me. But that's just how it is, I guess, when you're growing up. See, Vampires was awesome. Yeah, I I really need to go. We were going to do Vampires on Deep Cuts at some point, I think, because I have a lot to say about that movie, and I would like to go back and see it again because I haven't seen it since it first hit VHS. Like I saw it in the theater and I saw it on VHS, but uh, yeah, I'm curious. Like I was not a huge fan of Vampires, even though I really should be because I thought James Woods was really great casting for that part. And whether you agree with him politically or not, I thought he was a good casting for that role. And I thought Thomas Ian Griffith getting to be a bad guy was like, yes, I've had this weird love of Thomas Ian Griffith since I saw Excessive Force as a kid for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, so I really wanted that movie to be really great, and it's not really great, but I don't think it's bad either, but I haven't seen it in so long. I really need to go see it again. You have a documentary and want me to come talk about horror movies? I'm there. I'm there. I'm glad we could settle the football practice mystery. I feel like I'm constantly settling that, but I don't want to make a chart, like an FAQ where football practice comes from. Yeah, it's an MST3K reference. Some movies aren't worth watching once Professor Strange figure. I'm with you, but like a lot of times my parents will see things and they like them, but they never have this urge. Like I'm like, you never have the urge to go back and see this again. No, I saw it. I remember it. Maybe it's just that I don't remember things. Maybe I just have a bad memory. All right. Oh, you covered vampires, Brian. Okay. Yeah, like I really need to go back and see it again because it's been a long time. Blackbeard, nice to see you. Fox. I have seen Blood and Black Lace. Written about it even. Just haven't gotten to it on the show. I like when I do giallo films too, honestly, but I gotta be truthful. They generally don't do very well. Like for the channel. A lot of times they kind of just middling numbers, and this is the kind of the struggle of the channel as it continues to grow, is like I'm just always trying to find the things that the most people want to see me do, while also doing the things I want to do, while also making sure I'm doing, like, the worst part of it is that I now have to do movies where I'm sure they will make enough to cover the cost of making the video. And because I have an editor who I pay, they just have to make a certain amount of money. Otherwise, I'm paying for that out of my pocket, and which sucks, which is not the goal of the channel. But so it's really hard now because the channel gets bigger and there are more people and the tastes are more diverse. So some of the stuff that I love, like Giallo films or something like, you know, what's a great example? Living Dead Girl, the Tokyo Battle Girl, Living Dead in Tokyo Bay. That video just was one I wanted to do because I thought it was a cool movie, and I think it's a weird movie and it's way off the beaten path and most people haven't seen it. And it's pretty well known cult wise, but that video didn't do well. And so I took a bath on on that video in the end. Like, it didn't earn out. It didn't do well view wise. It's then I pay for it in the long term too, because it impacts your numbers when the sponsor people come and show up and they're like, well, your last video only got 18,000 views. So, you know, we're not going to pay you any significant amount of money for this spot. Which sucks because I'm not a businessman, man. I'm just an idiot who likes to talk about horror movies. And so, but I have to think about it sometimes. And so sometimes there are movies I want to do and that a small segment of the audience wants that I just can't do because they just don't, like, I only have so many slots for movies, videos per year. And if they don't do well, then it hurts the channel, and which bums me out. It's a very convoluted answer, but yeah, I would love to do more of them, and I will do more of them, but it's always, when I do them now, it's like, it's always with the knowledge that this video is not going to do well. Ghost of Mars. Yeah, everybody hates Ghost of Mars. That's one I haven't seen since it came out either. Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers 78. That's a good one. That's a good one for 78. I think that was on my list for sure. All right. More Giallos need to be tackled. Yes, they do. You thought I was a metal fan. I am a hip hop fan. I like metal, fine, but I am never been a secret that I am a hardcore golden era underground hip hop fan, Tommy. Certainly will listen to the metal, but hip hop has always been my first love. What was the most awkward film to watch? God, my parents were never rented anything particularly crazy for family movie night. I don't know. There were some. Isn't Kelly LeBrock? Isn't there like a Kelly LeBrock like full frontal scene in Lady in Red? I remember there was one we had that had a full frontal scene in it, and I was like, oh God. And I think it was Lady in Red, but I don't remember. Like, it's the Marilyn Monroe scene and the dress blows up, except, you know, she was going commando. Somebody, one of you pervs will know. I will get down to that part of the chat eventually, and you will confirm or deny. Oh, KRS-One. So my goat is Rakim, Kevin, but KRS-One, I have said many times, I have had the privilege of seeing Chris live on multiple occasions, and he is pound for pound the best live MC I have ever seen. And I have seen all the greats. I saw everybody except Tupac live at some point during the past 30 years. And Chris is, like Chris live makes you, he's hip hop, man. If you're not hyped up at a BDP show, you're dead. Oh, have you met Joe Bob? No, Johnny, I have not. Yeah, that's a big bucket list thing. Like, I have wanted to hang with Joe Bob for years, because I'm like, oh, we're like brothers. We liked the same stuff, and he was, hugely instrumental in me doing this, like as a career, like even as a film critic, because when I was a kid, nobody looked at horror films critically. They just dismissed them. It was like Leonard Maltin and Roger Ebert and Siskel, and they were all like, "Oh, these movies are trash," and blah blah blah. And they never wanted to say anything about them. It was just they sucked because they were body count movies or whatever. And so Joe Bob, even though that was like a parody kind of character he was playing, and then was like, and Chaz Balin were like proof that you could actually talk about these movies in the ways like I was thinking about them. I'm like, yeah, these are like dumb body count movies and they have a formula, but this one's saying something about this, and this is like a commentary on this, or and so Joe Bob was like the one of the first guys where I went like, God, you can actually do this and people will listen to you, and there are people who like these movies and want to talk about them, and and even though his show was like heads will roll, like I was around from like the TMC drive-in movie days, like way back, but yeah, I'd love to meet him because like MST3K and all that, I owe him like a huge debt. Like I would have probably not ended up doing what I do if I hadn't seen him as an impressionable, tween. So, any of the I Spit on Your Grave movies are a tough sit through. Yeah. I've thought about trying to do one, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. Yeah, Elvira. Yeah, I'd love to meet Elvira too. I've never met her either. So, let's see. Videodrome. JT Soul, you're going to be very excited soon. Because I might have a little Videodrome project coming up. That's my favorite James Woods role too. Yeah, children shouldn't play with dead things. That's one. Like people ask me to do that one a lot. I suppose I should probably get to it at some point before I die. All right. Let's see. Oh my God, how much further? Oh, I'm down here. All right, I caught up. That means I'm about done. How long have I been on here? Oh my God, I've been on here for hours. A good way to spend a Sunday, not Saturday. Besides Jaws when I was 5, my dad also took me to see Suspiria when I was 7. I was still in recovery from Jaws and trying to get over the fear. Yeah. Jaws traumatized me as a child, but yeah. Kevin, yes, that's so yeah. So if we're talking top 5, Kevin, I go Rakim 1, Kane 2. I probably put Black Thought at 3. Then it gets tricky because I've got 2 slots left, and I've got KRS, I've got Grandmaster Caz, and I've got Cool G Rap, and so it shifts around all the time. But like Rakim and Kane 1A 1B, that's like locked, and then like KRS, Black Thought, Grandmaster Caz, and G Rap like rotate around somewhere in there depending on the day. Yeah, Woman in Red was Gene Kelly, but there's like a full frontal scene of her in there, right? Like she's standing on a grate, Animotion, pretty sure. There's another movie from that same era, but yeah, that was the one. I was like, oh God. Took me a long time to realize that Joe Bob. See, I nerded out when we saw Joe Bob in The Stand as a kid, and my whole family is like, "What are you talking about? Who? What? This random dude?" I'm like, "That's Joe Bob." I saw Tupac live. It was great with Boss and MC Breed. Holy crap! I didn't even know until recently that MC Breed had passed. I totally missed it when he passed away. Boss, man, that takes me back. I always feel bad for Boss because, she basically lost her career because she didn't have any more gangster rap credibility because they found out she wasn't a gangster. She'd been to like private school and shit. And now like all these guys are fakes. So it's like pro wrestling. Like most of these guys aren't gangsters, even though they talk about it. But she lost her career over it, and now nobody cares. So poor boss. Yep, I have done Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. That one did pretty well. That one got demonetized, and I still don't know why. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for hanging out with me on a Sunday afternoon. My voice is starting to go, which means it's probably about time for me to go, but not before I thank Matt Florent for a $5 super chat. Temple of Doom was the only movie that ever traumatized me. What the fuck, Spielberg? Yeah, well, you know, that's one of those ones they came up with PG-13 for. Spielberg was like working the system. I remember seeing it like the heart rip out in the beginning. I'm like, whoa. Can I get a hell yeah before you go? Like from Danny, I don't have it queued up. So I'm on the wrong audio interface today. Normally I have it on the pads of my Rodecaster, but I'm on the Go XLR today, so I don't have it. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you as always. Keep an eye out. There'll be more on Twitch. I'm trying to do one over here, like a live, like once a month, to hang out with you guys. Cause I like hanging out with you guys. I like to just sit here and shoot the shit. Yes. There's a Sidewalk Great skirt blower scene with Kelly and Woman in Red. Yep. I remember. But yes, thank you all for coming. You know, we've got merch, we've got the Amazon affiliate links. You can support the channel however you want. I'm just happy that you guys watch and hang out. So I appreciate you. And I will see you again soon. And we'll have a new video Wednesday, an exciting one. It's gonna be good. So I hope to see you there. Take it easy and have a good rest of your weekend. Next Twitch when? Maybe this week. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll post it here when I go. Okay. Thanks, guys. I will see you soon.